I finished processing the game quickly. Brother-in-law, you've struck gold. I've never even seen a moose before. The deep mountains were vast and treacherous. Finding such game was a rare stroke of luck. Just good fortune, I replied. The brothers looked at the small cart. This won't fit everything, will it? Leave it to me, I said. With surgical precision, I used my knife to dismantle the moose legs at the joints. The others watched in awe as I efficiently broke down the carcasses. Put the 12 legs in the cart, then stack the torsos on top and lash them down. By removing the long legs, the bulky torsos fit perfectly on the cart. The tires sagged, but I pumped them up just enough to hold the weight without bursting. With 6 men, Su Sheng, Su Daong, I, the Huang brothers, and Huzi, pulling and pushing, we began our journey. I and Huzi hauled the donkey cart, our ropes reinforced to prevent snapping. Both carried rifles, wary of hunters along the route. 1, 2, 3 heave. 1, 2, 3 heave. At the mountain base, the uneven terrain made progress difficult. The group worked together to maneuver the cart onto a smoother, albeit still dirt, path. Put your backs into it, brothers. Keep the rhythm. The 6 men chanted in unison, pulling the cart at a steady, rhythmic pace. Though initially reluctant, I was drawn into the atmosphere, a unique relic of an era before tractors became commonplace. I soon shed my self-consciousness, syncing my movements with the group's cadence and joining the chant with growing confidence. While 5,000 caddies is heavy, the burden was shared primarily by me and the donkey, which could pull as much as 2 or 3 men. The primary laborers were me, the donkey, Huang Shan, and Huang Hai, followed by Shengger, Su Daong, and Huzi. Are we heading to the county town or the city? The latter being a 4 to 5 hour trek away. They had departed at dawn to avoid village scrutiny. Reaching the city by noon was possible, though exhausting. Huang Hai's question left me momentarily hesitant. I preferred the city, not only for better prices, but to buy a dress for Yaya. County stores rarely stocked children's ready-to-wear clothing, as rural families typically bought fabric to sew their own. State-run stores in the county rarely stocked children's clothes, as demand was low and they weren't pressured by sales quotas. City shops offered better variety, whereas rural children were often too busy playing in the dirt to worry about fashion. Rural life was grueling, with adults earning 1 work point per day and minors half. My father, however, held a steady job. Out of pride and affection for his daughter, my father never forced her to earn work points. Now that I was established, my younger sister no longer needed to toil. We're family, just say it, Huang Shan urged, sensing my hesitation. Brother-in-law, I want to go to the city. The price is better, and I need to buy things unavailable in the county. Is that all? Don't be so reserved. We're here to help you. The destination doesn't matter. The men had taken the day off. The extra distance was merely a matter of more physical effort. Exactly, we're all kin here, added Huang Hai. With my brother, cousin, and close friends present, there were no outsiders. I just didn't want to waste everyone's time. They chatted and chanted, resting occasionally before pushing on. By noon, the group finally reached the city. I, possessing superhuman strength, held back to avoid drawing undue attention. My superhuman strength was better suited for bursts than long hauls, but my base strength of 50 was already far beyond the average man. While 50 men might struggle to lift 5,000 caddies, I could manage it with ease. My stable, high base strength allowed me to outperform others effortlessly. Even without activating my full power, my baseline was equivalent to dozens of men. Phew, finally here. I'm exhausted. Huzi collapsed onto the ground, uncaring of his surroundings. I propped up the cart with wooden sticks to give the weary donkey a break. Wait here while I check the prices. I approached Manager Liu, who had purchased my previous game. Moose? Let me see. Manager Liu rushed out, stunned by the mountain of meat. How did you haul all this here? Moose wasn't rare, but transporting it without a tractor was nearly impossible. The distance from the mountains to the city was a 5-hour walk for a person, let alone with a heavy load. I had achieved the impossible. Brother, moose is rare in the city because of the distance. Hunters rarely make the trek. Procurement officers can't manage this logistics, and getting it out of the mountains is a feat in itself. You've surprised me, but I must be professional. I work for the state, so I have to be careful. I hope you understand. What's your offer? Lu was surprised by my directness, having expected the usual haggling. I was simply too tired for games. If Lu wouldn't pay, I'd take it to the market. The market was a last resort, involving stall fees and slow, small-volume sales. Unless I found a factory buyer, the market was inefficient and unpredictable. Fair enough. Moose isn't as tender as sick deer, but it's nutritious. It was tougher, but with 2,000 caddies available, the volume was significant. How about 1.2 yuan per caddy? Pork was 0.85 yuan. Bear meat had fetched 8 yuan previously, but that was an outlier price for a rare commodity. High-end restaurants like Manhwa could afford such prices, selling bear meat dishes at a premium. But for the general market, 8 yuan was impossible. I was targeting the elite. Lu's offer of 1.2 yuan was a standard market rate, which I could have gotten in the county. Lu was clearly lowballing me. Manager Lu, I didn't haul this all the way here for market prices. If you can't offer more, I'll take my business elsewhere. I turned to leave, knowing that in a meat-starved nation, I held the leverage. Wait, let's talk. No need to be so hasty, we can negotiate. Manager Lu couldn't offer a high price for such a massive amount of meat. It would exceed his budget and make his accounts impossible to balance. Unlike the small batch of Chinese water deer he bought previously, this haul of several thousand pounds of moose meat was too large to justify a high price without risking his position. State-run restaurants are stifled by rigid pricing and red tape. Managers lack the autonomy to make quick decisions, and filing reports would only lead to the meat spoiling. He could only offer a price slightly above market value, avoiding anything too extreme to stay safe. While high prices might be profitable, they violate strict state regulations, unlike the more flexible public-private partnerships. 1.5 yuan is my absolute limit. If you aren't satisfied, I'm out of options. I initially approached him because I knew the restaurant could handle the volume. While I was happy with the price for bear meat, moose meat was different. It's the difference between a duck and a pig. While moose is rare, it's not exotic enough to command a massive premium. 1.5? That's too low. We put in so much effort to hunt and transport this. After splitting it up, there's nothing left. I deliberately framed the sale as a collective effort, representing the village or commune, to shift the context. This explained why 6 men were present, justifying the logistics of transporting moose meat to the city. This risk-shifting protected me. If the profit was for the collective, it was fine, but if it were personal, I'd be branded a 10,000 yuan household and face trouble. Being labeled a speculator would be disastrous for me. I can't take that risk. I know the meat is valuable, but my position is precarious, and many are eyeing my job. A slight price hike is a smart business move, but too much would look like I'm taking kickbacks, which could land me in jail. Manager Lu needed to keep the price low enough to avoid suspicion of corruption, ensuring the deal looked like a standard, legitimate procurement. I understood this. I only came to Lu because Manager Fan's restaurant didn't specialize in game meat. Moose meat wasn't as rare as bear, so Fan wouldn't pay a premium for it. And after our last deal, I didn't want to risk a lower offer. 8 yuan was an astronomical price, impossible to find anywhere else in the city. I agreed to the price, realizing that selling it myself at the market or splitting it among various restaurants would be tedious and yield little extra profit. In this era, only rare game like bear or tiger could command high prices. Everything else was strictly regulated. Moose is heavy and difficult to transport, which naturally suppresses its market value despite its relative rarity. Fine, 1.5 yuan it is. Excellent. I'll arrange the weighing. I'd pay more if I could, but our restaurant's capital is limited, and I can't risk a cash flow crisis. Meat is valuable, but a restaurant needs cash for other supplies like fish and vegetables to keep customers coming back. Tying up all their cash in moose meat would be foolish, and waiting for new budget approvals would take too long. Fair enough, let's get to weighing. They began the labor-intensive process of butchering and weighing the massive moose carcasses, as the restaurant lacked a large-scale scale. I used my butchery skill to divide the meat, while Su Sheng kept a close eye on the records. I and Huzi kept our tallies separate to settle our own accounts later, without needing to involve the manager. Brother, it's 4,800 pounds total, coming to 7,200 yuan. Please check the ledger. I checked the accountant's records against Su Sheng's notes. They matched perfectly. No need. I trust you, Manager Lu. Lu chuckled, knowing I had been keeping my own records, but he didn't mind. It was standard practice. Wait here while I process the payment. Please, have some tea and rest. 7,200 yuan was a significant sum requiring formal approval, signatures, and stamps from the finance department. The inventory also had to be signed off by the warehouse manager to justify the massive expenditure. The payment had to pass through the accountant and the finance department before it could be released. Soon, Lu returned with the cash. Please, count it to ensure it's correct. It was a thick stack of 720 10 yuan bills, a massive amount of cash for the time. I counted it quickly, easily verifying the authenticity of the bills. After counting, Lu invited them to lunch. I accepted, as my team was exhausted and needed a meal anyway. While the profit margin was tight, the sheer volume of the sale was a massive favor to Manager Lu. If private restaurants were legal, I could have made a fortune, but the current era didn't allow for it. The low price was a trade-off for the safety of the current system. It was better to make a profit than to risk everything for a higher price. Oh, I can't let you pay for the meal, Manager Lu. I was just being polite. Given how hard Lu squeezed the price, a meal was the least he could provide. For 6 people, a meal would cost 20 to 30 yuan, a small price for Lu to pay for such a large procurement. Lu was savvy and provided a spread of chicken, fish, and alcohol. Since they had helped move the goods, the meal was perfectly justifiable. Lu joined them for a few drinks, showing respect to me, and I recognized Lu's status as a state official. After a satisfying meal, they prepared to leave. Safe travels, Brother Su. Lu saw them out and ensured their donkey cart was guarded and the animals were fed. Lu was incredibly professional and thorough, leaving me feeling well treated. It was a mutually beneficial deal. Lu got his meat, and I got a fair price without the headache of retail. Selling the meat elsewhere would have been a logistical nightmare, as few places had the cold storage to handle such a large quantity. I sold the moose meat at a slight premium, helping the manager secure a favorable reputation with superiors. While minor, such accomplishments build a valuable professional track record. In this era, a manager's ability to source scarce resources like meat is a significant resume booster. It proves resourcefulness, which is highly valued in a purchasing agent's role. Where to next, Brother Yu? The group looked to me, and I clutched my bag containing 7,200 yuan. Finding a secluded spot, I counted out 1,350 yuan for Huzi, paying him for his 900 jin share of the moose. Huzi noted the weight was actually under 900 jin due to the removal of organs. I ignored the discrepancy, treating it as a flat 900 jin to avoid petty accounting between friends. I preferred round numbers to keep things simple. No, I can't take advantage of you like this. Shut up. You're getting married soon. Don't you need a bike and money for the banquet? Take it. I insisted, handing the money over. I now held 5,850 yuan, bringing my total to 13,850 yuan, or 12,850 after setting aside funds for Zhengyu Kingdom. Smaller earnings were kept by Huang Sui for household expenses. I only managed the large sums. Since we're here, let's go shopping. With my wealth safely managed, I felt secure enough to splurge. Huang Shan and Su Daong tagged along, having nothing better to do. I bought clothes and shoes for Yaya and my little sister, getting 2 sets for Yaya. I then purchased 2 outfits each for my sister, brother-in-law, third uncle, third aunt, Daong, Xiaotong, my brothers-in-law, and my parents-in-law. I also bought 2 sets for my own parents to ensure fairness. I wanted my sister to look respectable when moving to the city, helping her integrate rather than feel inferior. I wanted to ensure her transition was smooth and dignified. I also bought gifts for my brothers-in-law to compensate for the work points they lost while helping me. It was a gesture of goodwill to keep the in-laws happy. Being stingy wasn't worth the social cost. I included the brothers-in-law to avoid making them feel like mere bystanders. I extended the same generosity to my cousin, Su Daong, to maintain family harmony. I skipped my own brother, Su Sheng, as he didn't need the extra clothes. Little you, this is too much. I'm embarrassed to accept so much. Don't be a stranger. You and my brother will be working together soon. You need to look the part. Su Sheng, what about me? The others tried to decline the gifts, feeling guilty about receiving so much for a simple favor. Just look after my brother at the factory. He's impulsive, so keep an eye on him. The brother-in-law immediately agreed, relieved to have a specific task to justify the gifts. Consider it done. He's family. I'll make sure he isn't bullied. I didn't correct the bullied comment. Seeing Su Sheng's sulking expression, I relented and bought him 2 sets of clothes and shoes too. I couldn't stand my 1.9-meter-tall brother acting so miserable. The total cost for these standard worker-style outfits and shoes was under 150 yuan. Such a haul for that price was a bargain of the era. Brother, head back now. I need to buy grain and visit the steel mill to confirm your start dates. I sent them off, refusing Su Sheng's offer to stay. The group left, carrying their new clothes, accustomed to walking long distances. They headed home in high spirits. The return trip was much lighter without the carts they had brought earlier. I went to a store and asked, "Do you sell rifle ammunition?" I needed to replenish my dwindling supply. 5 yuan a box. How many do you need? The clerk asked for a specific quantity before discussing discounts. I slapped 100 yuan on the counter. The clerk, suspicious of such a large purchase, demanded my details. I realized my mistake. The clerk was wary of enemy agents. I provided my name, commune, and village details for registration. I used my heightened senses to overhear the clerk calling the local police station to verify my identity. The station checked with my commune. My identity was legitimate, and the village head knew of my hunting activities. The clerk returned, acting as if nothing had happened. "Since you bought so much, here's a discount. 25 boxes instead of 20. I trust you." I stashed the ammo in my bag, having already moved my money into my space. Finally, I used my bicycle coupon to buy a brand new bike for 280 yuan. I loaded my donkey cart with game meat, mostly hidden caches from previous hunts, and stored my bicycle in my space. I headed to the steel mill to maintain my connection and deliver the meat. "Comrade, I'm here to deliver game for Zheng Yuegua." The guard, a newcomer, went to fetch Zheng. Zheng Yuegua hurried out, breathless. "Brother, you finally came. I thought you'd stopped. I thought you were stocked up, so I sold elsewhere. Besides, I heard you weren't interested in common game like jackals." Zheng winced, realizing I was mocking the complaints of the factory leadership. Zheng privately despised the picky leaders, but he couldn't voice that. He had complained to me earlier, only to have it thrown back in his face. "Don't mind them, brother. I have no issues with your goods. It's just the out-of-touch leadership." It was a classic case of internal friction. I remained indifferent. I knew the factory paid market prices, not premium ones, so I wasn't obligated to prioritize them with high-quality meat. Zheng changed the subject, inspecting the cart. The quality was mixed, though the goats were decent. "Let's go weigh it," Zheng said, leading me to the kitchen. Zheng worried that if he kept pushing for better quality, I would stop coming altogether. I hinted that other restaurants were happy to take my stock, making it clear that providing even a portion of high-quality meat was a favor. The previous price gouging was only possible because the deputy director was angling for a promotion. That window had closed. Now, prices were strictly market-based. Zheng's real value was his ability to expedite payments, which usually took months. In this era of bureaucratic laziness, having an in with the finance department was crucial. Without a connection, staff would delay payments to avoid appearing idle to superiors. 650 gene total. "Do you want individual pricing or a flat rate?" Zheng asked. Individual pricing was fairer but tedious. Zheng asked to avoid offending me, fearing the loss of a reliable supplier. Procurement officers had to maintain relationships, as many villages only sold to specific, trusted individuals. Trust was built on personal rapport and avoiding payment delays. Rural sellers feared lowballing and payment defaults. Experienced agents who integrated into village life were far more successful than newcomers. "Flat rate, please. How about 0.8 yuan?" I replied. Zheng couldn't authorize a higher price, but 0.8 was fair enough to keep me coming back. "Deal," I agreed. 520 yuan total. "Let's get the paperwork from Manhwa and head to finance." They quickly secured the payment. "Want to grab lunch at the canteen?" Zheng asked. I declined, not wanting to impose or deal with the lack of meal coupons. "I've eaten. Actually, I have a favor to ask regarding my brother's entry into the factory. I decided to leverage our relationship for my family's benefit." "Anything for a brother, just say it." Zheng's vague promise was standard, but I knew I had to make the request worth Zheng's effort. I need to find reputable masters for my brother and 2 other relatives to apprentice under. I don't know the masters' temperaments, and I want someone responsible who will actually teach them. Zheng was relieved it wasn't a request for a loan. I was hoping you could use your connections to introduce them to the right masters. I'll provide the tuition. I just need you to facilitate the introductions. I handed over 100 yuan. It was a significant sum, enough to cover gifts for high-level masters. I had to give enough to ensure Zheng didn't just pocket it all and fail the task. With 100 yuan, even if Zheng took a cut, there would be enough left for high-quality gifts like liquor and cigarettes. Getting a master to take on an apprentice via a backdoor request was difficult, as they preferred factory assignments. I needed a principled master who would actually teach, which required proper greasing of the wheels. Providing sufficient funds was the only way to ensure the job got done properly. Isn't this too much? Zheng asked. Keep the change for your trouble, or use it to buy something for your family, I replied. The message was clear. The money was his if the task was completed successfully. I insisted on giving Zheng Yueguo a gift, and after some polite back and forth, Zheng finally accepted it. Zheng promised to use his connections to find a master craftsman in the factory to mentor my brothers, ensuring they would learn a trade quickly. I thanked him, asking for continued support for my brothers, who were new to the city and unfamiliar with the factory environment. Zheng assured me that he would treat my brothers as his own. Zheng was impressed by my maturity, tact, and generosity, finding me the type of person worth befriending. After seeing me off, Zheng began mentally vetting the factory's master craftsmen. He felt the pressure to do a good job, knowing he couldn't afford to mess this up. Having accepted the gift, Zheng felt obligated to provide a reliable recommendation to maintain their relationship. He decided to proceed cautiously rather than rushing. Zheng realized he didn't actually know the workshop masters well, as his role in procurement kept him isolated from the floor workers. However, his position in procurement gave him broad access to every department during holiday distributions, providing him with a wide network. He knew he would need to conduct thorough inquiries to ensure he made the right choice. Meanwhile, I retrieved a bicycle and a large sack of cornmeal from my space, intending to return home with purchased goods. This sack was a negligible fraction of the massive haul I had acquired from the black market. I urged the donkey forward. I returned to Sanshuiwan safely, using the cornmeal as a backrest. I stored the grain and bike at home before returning the donkey cart. I missed my brothers on the road, as they had arrived home much earlier. Upon returning, I found my wife, Huang Sui, admiring the new bicycle. I explained I bought the new one because I gave our old bike to my brother. Huang Sui asked how much I had sold the game for. I was surprised by her interest in finances, but realized that keeping money in my space was safer than hiding it at home. I decided it was fine to be open with her. I told her I had 5,850 yuan stashed away and handed her 470 yuan for household expenses. The amount included the proceeds from the moose sale. Huang Sui was stunned by the large sum. In the 1970s, men typically managed finances, but my gesture was a sign of my trust and status as the head of the household. Huang Sui, accustomed to the era's norms, was more than satisfied with the significant amount of cash. She now held nearly 1,000 yuan, a small fortune. However, the responsibility of guarding such a large sum made her anxious. She felt the weight of the money, knowing it was earned through my hard work. I insisted she keep it, encouraging her to spend on herself for things like skincare, just like other women. Huang Sui rolled her eyes at my bossy tone, though she was secretly touched. She mentioned that my sister and brother-in-law had arrived to discuss the factory job. I was surprised by their sudden visit. Huang Sui noted they were likely there to confirm the job details as the month drew to a close. I checked the calendar and told her to go ahead while I followed shortly. I retrieved a large sika deer leg and a bottle of wine from my space to bring to the old courtyard. I used the excuse of getting meat from my friend Huzi to explain the sudden appearance of the deer leg. Given our close bond, no one would question me getting meat from Huzi. Our friendship was so tight that the family wouldn't find it strange at all. I greeted my brother Shengguer, then entered the room to greet my sister and brother-in-law, handing the meat to my mother, Lu Yuji. His mother, concerned about his sister's thin frame, immediately headed to the kitchen to prepare a nourishing meal. His sister and brother-in-law asked to speak with me privately. The other women tactfully left the room. I didn't mind, assuming my sister wanted privacy. I sat down to listen. They announced they had decided against taking the factory jobs. I was baffled, as this was a life-changing opportunity for urban residency and future housing. I knew that with hard work, they could easily secure a stable future. They could pay off the 500 yuan debt within 5 years and live comfortably. However, I noticed their distressed expressions. I realized something was wrong. I pressed them for a reason, assuring them that the money was not a burden. I made it clear that I didn't care about the financial return. I just wanted them to have a better life. They remained evasive, clearly hiding a deeper issue they were unwilling to disclose. I generally respect others' choices, believing that one shouldn't force their path on others, as fate is unpredictable. While my foresight suggests the future holds change, I don't force my help unless the situation is clearly wrong. Why won't you say? If you don't explain, the money I spent will be wasted. Having already secured the 4 introduction letters, I can't return them, but I want to understand the underlying issue. I have a suspicion but hold back, fearing I might unfairly slander others. Realizing the money is non-refundable, his sister grows anxious. But we haven't even started the job yet. How can they refuse a refund? That's unreasonable. I know a refund is impossible and wouldn't ask for one anyway. Doing so would offend the contact in Zhengyu Kingdom who sold the spots. Forget that. Tell me, why can't you take the job? Is it too tiring? No, it's not about the work. Wu Jinxing finally speaks up, prompted by his brother-in-law's frustration. If it's not that, then what is it? Speak up. I slammed the table in frustration, startling Wu Jinxing. Lu Yuji enters, scolding me for my temper. I calm down and wait for an explanation. After a long silence, Suli steps in. I'll say it. Suli explains that her husband's parents forbid him from leaving, claiming they rely on him as the eldest son. They say if he leaves, who will farm and support them in their old age? They feel they'd have raised him for nothing. They even demanded he give the spot to his younger brother, but he refused, so they've become even more adamant. My suspicions were correct. I hadn't asked earlier to avoid insulting his brother-in-law's parents prematurely. I wanted them to volunteer the truth to avoid causing unnecessary offense or embarrassment. I am furious, and my eldest brother, Su Sheng, enters, having overheard everything. Are they treating you like a donkey? I'm an eldest son too, yet I can go. Why can't you? I tell them to stay the night, promising to handle it tomorrow. I leave without further explanation. Huang Sui chases after me, finding me calmly drinking tea at home. She worries I'm planning a confrontation. She advises me not to overstep, warning that interfering in family matters could cause a rift between his sister and her husband. So I should just watch them treat my sister's family like pack animals? Whether to intervene depends on the depth of the sibling bond, which varies from family to family. Huang Sui urges me to be tactful, warning that if I push too hard, his sister will be caught in the middle. I understand the burden of these social and moral expectations. I understand. Go back and keep my sister company. Huang Sui leaves, and I watch her go, lost in thought. That evening, the family enjoys a peaceful dinner together, avoiding the day's conflict. Suli's family stays at my house for the night. They exchange brief pleasantries before retiring. As they prepare for bed, Huang Sui asks about my plan for the factory job. Leave it to me, I say, falling asleep immediately. The next morning, I decline Huzi's invitation to the mountains and eat at the old courtyard. Su Sheng insists on joining, wanting to support his sister. I agree and go to consult third uncle for advice. They need third uncle's experience to handle this delicate family matter. I return with Su Deong, who is joining them to help. Su Sheng asks if third uncle approved. My dad said he'll stay back as a backup plan in case we mess up, Su Deong explains. They share a knowing smile. Suli nervously asks if they intend to fight. I retort, is that your question, or his? Wu Jinxing looks away, avoiding eye contact. I am annoyed by the cowardice. Younger brother Su Jin tries to join with a wooden stick. I order him to go work in the fields instead. Su Sheng scolds Su Jin for trying to pick a fight. Su Jin grumbles, but obeys. After the brothers finish scolding him, Su Jin leaves. They gather bicycles for the trip. The group sets off toward Wujia town. Upon arrival, I ask where the village party secretary lives. Wu Jinxing hesitates, fearing the public shame. I press him. Are you going to back down now? Do you want to spend your life farming while your brother takes everything? Is it fair that you work yourself to death while your brother gets the benefits and the inheritance? My words strike a nerve, forcing Wu Jianxing to confront his reality. The painful memory of being denied food as a child while his brother was favored resurfaces. I had found the resources, yet my father struck me down, demanding I yield to my younger brother. Conditioned to sacrifice for my brother, I felt only resentment. My relentless badgering agitated Wu Jianxing, prompting Su Li to intervene. San, stop forcing your brother-in-law. This isn't his fault. I'll take you to the village party secretary. Stop pressuring him. Su Li, raised in a normal family, saw through her in-law's blatant favoritism. Unable to bear her brother's constant salt rubbing into her husband's wounds, she finally snapped. She wanted her husband to wake up and stop being exploited, even if it meant hardship. She still cherished his kindness toward her. Seeing him cornered, she refused to let him suffer alone. Jinsheng, I'll go with Xiaoyu. He's right. This is unfair. To be treated as a man, he had to stand up for himself rather than hide. He needed to face the pain to awaken. I signaled Su Li to stay behind, then exchanged a look with Su Sheng and followed. Su Daong stayed with Su Li, while I, Wu Jiansheng, and Su Sheng headed to the village party secretary's house. Secretary, are you home? The house had a simple, common slatted gate. The secretary opened the door, surprised by the two men behind Wu Jianxing. We need your help. This is Su Li's brother and her elder brother. I and Su Xing introduced ourselves briefly. Puzzled, the secretary invited them inside. Encouraged by me, Wu Jiansheng explained the situation, and I presented the introduction letter. Secretary, look. This spot cost 500 yuan and significant favors. We can't let it go to waste. The secretary inspected the letter, noting the steel mill's official seal and the vice director's signature. He recognized the seal as authentic. He knew the favors were actually a bribe, but such things were never spoken aloud. The letter is real. You want me to intervene? The Wu family's claim that the eldest son must stay to provide for them is futile nonsense. My brother is also an eldest son, and he serves the country proudly. The secretary couldn't argue against the honor of labor. I brought 2 cartons of cigarettes as a token of respect. I produced the high-quality cigarettes. I can't accept these, young man. I insisted, framing the gift as a gesture of filial respect and gratitude for the secretary's past support of my sister. To sway a village official against his own villagers, one needed both ideological appeal and material incentive. Otherwise, officials usually kept internal disputes behind closed doors. The secretary would normally handle such matters privately, correcting the feudal mindset without letting outsiders interfere. But I needed the secretary to act decisively in front of me. The secretary accepted the cigarettes, not just for their value, but for his own reasons. He had already warned Wu's father, who had ignored him and continued his blatant favoritism. Since the father disregarded his authority, the secretary felt no need to protect his reputation. This is a family matter, but the father's mindset is wrong. As secretary, it is my duty to help him correct it. I and Su Sheng exchanged a smile. The battle was half won. Exactly. Being a worker is a great honor. Refusing it is a lack of awareness. The secretary agreed. In rural areas, a city household registration and planned grain rations were highly coveted, even leading women to marry widowers just to move to the city. The Wu family's refusal was indeed absurd. Since the spot was bought by the Su family, the village had no claim to reallocate it. It wasn't a village asset, so the Wu family had no say. Having a villager in the city offered the secretary political advantages and a contact point in town. It would make future village business easier. It also provided a potential pipeline for future job openings at the steel mill. I can't do this alone. I'll get the accountant, the militia captain, and the production team leaders. Let's see if the old man dares to defy me. Production team leaders managed labor, supervision, and land distribution. Poor production was blamed on the leaders' incompetence. Land was divided among teams, often by lottery. Some villages rotated land periodically to ensure fairness. Team leaders held significant local power. Challenging them meant escalating to the village head. They were elected, respected, and often vied for labor model status to advance their careers. The secretary returned with the accountant and militia captain, men of integrity and local standing. These roles required trust and a reputation for being incorruptible. I distributed cigarettes and explained the situation again. I added that Su Li would accompany her husband, having secured a temporary job at the sub-district office. I avoided mentioning permanent status to prevent greed from others. Even so, the group looked at Wu Jinsheng with envy. We understand your request. We will help convince the father to let him take the job. It's a family matter, but we will intervene. The village secretary argued that preventing a son from advancing his career to keep him home for support was a sign of poor ideological awareness, similar to families who fear their sons joining the military. He emphasized that as brigade members, they had a duty to help villagers broaden their thinking and raise their awareness, rather than selfishly holding their children back. After reaching a consensus, the village secretary led the group directly to Wu Genxing's home. Su Li and Su Daong were waiting at the door. I introduced Su Daong and the village officials, and the group entered the Wu household. It was noon, and the whole family was present. Seeing the influential officials arrive, the elder Wu sensed trouble and glared at his eldest son. He forced a smile, feigning ignorance. "Old secretary, what brings you here at noon?" The secretary replied, "Cut the act, old Wu. We have business to discuss inside." They moved into the main hall. Su Li served hot water and stood aside. The secretary gestured to me. "Comrade Su, you explain the situation, and I will add to it." I understood the secretary was letting me lead the confrontation while providing official backing. "I will explain briefly," I said. I placed the introduction letter on the table, clearly showing Wu Genxing's name. Although the name could have been left blank, Zhengyu Kingdom had insisted on filling it in to prevent backpedaling. The group was unaware that a name change was technically possible. "Everyone look. My brother-in-law's name, Wu Jinsheng, is on this letter. I've already handled the necessary arrangements. I'm here for an answer. If you won't let him go, give me a reason. Either pay back the money or provide a legitimate excuse. Otherwise, this won't end here." "An answer? What answer do you want?" Old Wu retorted. "Wu Jinsheng is my son. As long as I'm alive, I run this house." "Old secretary, are you really going to interfere in family matters?" Old Wu was cunning, forcing the secretary to choose between intervening in a private family affair or backing down. The second brother chimed in. "My father is right. This is our family business. Don't trouble yourself." The second brother's tone was insufferably smug. I countered. "He is your son, but he isn't your private property. We've been liberated for years. Do you still think you own slaves?" I seized the moral high ground, shifting the focus to whether the father was treating his eldest son like a slave. "Nonsense. You're Su Li's brother. Is this the upbringing your family gave you, speaking to your elders like this?" Old Wu, feeling emboldened by the presence of the local militia captain and his own village, retorted sharply. "I don't know about my upbringing, but my parents support my brother's career at the steel mill. Why is it a problem in your house? I paid for this opportunity for my brother-in-law. Instead of gratitude, you're causing trouble. Where's the logic in that?" Old Wu was momentarily silenced by the blunt question. "Fine words," the second brother sneered. "You paid? That just means the Wu family owes you a debt we can't afford." The second brother was a petty, clever troublemaker. Old Wu added, "I'm old. I can't pay your debts. If the eldest goes to the city, he'll barely feed his own family. What if he can't pay? The Wu family can't afford that shame." I replied, "Since we're being open, I have a solution. You won't have to pay, and your son can still become a proud factory worker. Agree to let him go, and I'll tell you how." This trapped Old Wu, especially since his son had already committed them to the fear of debt argument. The secretary prodded, "Well, Old Wu, the young man has a solution that saves your money and gains you a worker. Are you interested?" With the secretary, accountant, and militia captain present, Old Wu couldn't easily play the rogue without facing consequences. The officials had plenty of ways to punish him, from public criticism meetings to forced labor like street sweeping or night patrols. Offending me was one thing, but defying the entire village leadership was a path to social ruin. "Fine, let's hear it," Old Wu conceded. Old Wu planned to nitpick, but I was ready to challenge his authority. "First, answer me. Is it glorious for your son to be a factory worker? Do you want that for him?" It was a trap. In front of the secretary, he couldn't say no without appearing ideologically backward. The secretary could easily assign him to daily ideological awareness classes for weeks if he answered incorrectly. These classes were essentially endless public criticism sessions. Old Wu tried to deflect. Working for the country is glorious, but farming is also a contribution. Work has no high or low status, right? I chuckled, unimpressed by the old man's attempt to outmaneuver me. Since you agree it's glorious, let's discuss the support issue. If he goes to the city. Wait, I haven't agreed yet. I ignored the interruption. I'm speaking hypothetically. If you still disagree, you can find another excuse. If they move to the city, they'll be busy. But the elderly still need care, right? So, we formalized the separation. The eldest and second brother share the burden of your support. Since they are separated, the eldest's debt is his own, and the Wu family is off the hook. Problem solved, right? By linking separation, support, and debt, I effectively stripped away all of old Wu's excuses. Separation? No, I'm not dead yet. How can we separate? You said being a worker is glorious. If he's in the city, he's effectively separated anyway. Do you want to dump all the work on the second brother, or do you want the eldest to help? The trap was shut. If he refused, his previous arguments collapsed. I had offered a deal that solved the debt and the support issue, leaving old Wu with no logical ground to stand on. I scoffed at the old man's excuses. If the eldest son left, who would handle the heavy farm labor and keep the family under my thumb? Cough. No, it's too far. I'm worried and can't bear to let him go. Let's just drop it. I cursed silently. The old man was shameless. He didn't care about his son. He just didn't want to lose his free labor. I glanced at the village party secretary, signaling it was time to apply pressure. The 2 packs of cigarettes were an investment, and the secretary knew their worth. Even for non-smokers, receiving high-end gifts like Huazi creates a social debt that demands a response. The secretary felt obligated to act. One doesn't accept such gifts without providing a service in return. Old man Wu, stop playing the fool. You're biased toward your second son, and everyone knows it. How dare you claim you're worried about the eldest? The old man was stunned that the secretary had turned on him so aggressively. Everyone in the village knew his character. His favoritism had been blatant for decades. The secretary had effectively stripped away his facade, leaving him exposed. He couldn't lash out. The secretary held too much power in this era. Without an introduction letter, one couldn't even stay at an inn. The secretary could easily delay or deny such requests. If the secretary suspected someone of being an enemy agent, he could withhold the letter, citing security concerns. Between bureaucratic delays and influence over farm assignments, the secretary could make life miserable. While the commune had oversight, no one would risk their standing to help a man like Wu against the local leadership. I secured a job at the steel mill for my brother-in-law. Instead of gratitude, you're pushing it away? Are you trying to be an outlier? In this climate, being an outlier invited harsh criticism and re-education. The village leadership is here to settle this, not to listen to your nonsense about being worried. State your real demands. Otherwise, we'll organize a public criticism session for your old-fashioned behavior. Don't play games with me. The secretary's barrage left the old man rattled. He could no longer hide behind fake concern. He realized that if he continued to stall, he would alienate the village leaders, who held far more power than he did. Fine. If the brother-in-law is so capable, get a second spot for my second son. Then I'll agree. The secretary was shocked by the audacity of demanding 2 spots. The spots are limited and cost 500 to 600 yuan in bribes and connections. Who's paying for that? I countered, shutting him down. I effectively blocked that path. Wu Jinxing was devastated. He finally realized his father's opposition wasn't out of love, but greed for the job spot for his brother. He had thought his parents truly valued him, but the reality was far colder. He crouched down, feeling utterly abandoned by his own family. The irony was bitter. He had mistaken his father's exploitation for affection. Seeing his brother's calm expression, he realized he was the only one who hadn't known the truth. He had previously felt guilty about the idea of splitting the family, as it was culturally frowned upon. Now he realized his brother-in-law had seen through the situation all along. Only the secretary could have forced the old man to reveal his true, ugly motives. Old man Wu, you can't afford 500 yuan. Stop dreaming. Let your son go, or you'll end up with nothing. The secretary looked at the weeping Wu Jinxing, feeling pity for a man who had slaved away for his family only to be discarded. While he couldn't legally intervene in family matters, he could certainly apply moral pressure. The old man felt a flicker of pain seeing his son cry, but it was quickly eclipsed by his greed. He had always regretted not securing a better connection through his second son's marriage. He realized too late that my connections were invaluable. He wanted those benefits for his second son. He lamented his past misjudgment, seeing the eldest son as a wasted opportunity. Since the marriage was already established, he decided to simply seize the opportunity by force. He didn't care about family bonds. He only cared about the planned grain and the status that came with the job. But I was prepared for this. Since he won't agree, pay 500 yuan. Split it between the two sons, 250 each. The old man immediately refused. Why should I pay? You got the spot on your own. I wasn't interested in logic. I had brought muscle for a reason. Either he uses the introduction letter, or you pay up. The letter was in Wu Genxing's name. Only he could use it. I challenged the old man. Daring him to claim this was a private family matter that the village shouldn't touch. Su Sheng and Su Daong stood up, their imposing height creating immediate tension. Pay the money, or I'm taking assets as collateral. This matter is messy. Even if I emptied the Wu house and reported it to the public security, it remains a gray area. Did Wu Jinxing not ask for the job quota? Su Li is my sister, and after seeing his father's true colors, Wu Genxing's loyalty is uncertain. Since the family hasn't split, the debt is collective. My seizing their property is simply repaying a debt, a family dispute that even the public security would struggle to resolve. Even a court would struggle. If Su Li and Wu Jinxing admit they requested the quota, it becomes a joint debt. If they deny it, I can claim they are lying to avoid payment. There is no room for framing here. A job introduction letter is a valuable benefit. The entire Wu family village would welcome such a frame. A job quota is worth 500 yuan, or even 600 yuan if competition is fierce. I am not extorting them. I'm offering a path to employment. With a job, they could easily repay the money. I could even offer a grace period, making my position unassailable. Public security would side with me, concluding that the Wu family broke their agreement. I proceed without hesitation. Enough talk. Either pay up, or I'm clearing the house. I don't care about the Wu family's feelings. I can secretly reimburse my sister later, but I must secure the 500 yuan today. Since the old man refuses to be reasonable, I will humiliate the family. It provides entertainment for the bored villagers, which is good for their health. Once Su Li's family moves to the city, they will be beyond the Wu family's reach, leaving the old man with a ruined reputation and no quota. If the old man refuses to yield even after being emptied out, I will respect his stubbornness. But if he compromises, Su Li's family can finally cut ties. If it comes to a total breakdown, I will just take my sister home. The Wu family will be left with nothing and a ruined reputation. The old man might endure, but his second son and daughter-in-law won't. Once the family is destitute, the daughter-in-law will surely push for divorce, forcing the old man to yield. The old man claims extortion, but I ignore him, determined to escalate the situation. Move everything. I order. Su Sheng and Su Daong rush into the second son's room. Wu Lauer tries to stop them, but is easily shoved aside. Furniture, including the vanity and wardrobe, is dragged out to the gate. The house descends into chaos. The village party secretary is stunned. Comrade Su, don't be impulsive. Let's clarify. Was this quota your idea, or did the Wu family ask for it? I lie, claiming the brother-in-law asked for it personally. Wu Jinxing is stunned, but Su Li signals him to stay quiet. Wu Jinxing remains silent, effectively confirming the lie. The old man curses his son, calling him a white-eyed wolf for betraying the family. The village head stops the old man from attacking his son to prevent a public brawl that would look bad for the commune. Wu Jinxing remains expressionless. He chooses to stay neutral, understanding that I am trying to help him. He can't bring himself to betray me, so silence is his only option. Enough. Pay the debt, or I'll strip this house bare. I need the old man's cooperation because moving a household registration to the city requires the village's approval. If the old man opposes it, the village head must listen. Buying a quota is a sensitive matter. It's better to resolve this within the village than to let it escalate and attract outside scrutiny. I want to protect Zhengyu Kingdom, who provided the quota, from being a scapegoat if an investigation occurs. While such deals are common, They must remain unofficial to avoid public scandal. It's like corporate tax avoidance, legal, but not something you broadcast. If the matter escalates, factory leaders will be unhappy, which could jeopardize the job itself. I intend to hurt the old man's interests now, then offer a carrot later to ensure future compliance. Without a harsh lesson, the old man's greed will remain unchecked. Move it all. Get a bullock cart and haul it away. I am confident I can hire a cart. While villagers won't lend a cart for free, they will gladly accept payment for the service. Since the money goes to the collective, it's a legitimate transaction that the accountant can record. Collective funds are used for village expenses, like hosting a projectionist. Even if the projectionist accepts bribes, it's an open secret, similar to doctors accepting red envelopes. Proper hospitality ensures better service, like extra film screenings. A crowd gathers. The Wu family tries to resist, but they are no match for my men. The villagers watch, but seeing the village head standing by, they don't intervene. The old woman screams, accusing me of ruining them. She calls Su Li a little slut. I can handle the theft accusations, but insulting my sister is crossing the line. I don't care about curses, but I won't tolerate personal attacks against my sister. I approach the old woman, prompting the village head to intervene. The village head can ignore the debt collection, but he cannot allow physical violence. Dongzi, bring the militia to keep order. Don't let anyone get hurt. Dongzi, the militia captain, steps in. He dislikes the Wu family and is happy to watch them suffer. The Wu family claimed they were being bullied and swindled, but having witnessed the entire situation, the militia captain knew the truth. While he disliked the Wu family, he knew he had to intervene if things turned violent, as it was his duty to maintain order. Dongzi signaled the nearby militia members, who quickly jogged over. Keep an eye on them. Don't let them fight, Dongzi ordered. The militia members asked why they were allowing the Wu family home to be emptied. It's a debt repayment. He owes 500 yuan, and his assets aren't enough to cover it. Just ensure no one gets hurt. Understood. The onlookers realized the situation was a legitimate debt collection, not mere bullying, which justified the village party secretary's non-interference. The villagers were reasonable. They wouldn't defend the Wu family's bad debts. Dongzi and his men approached me. Stay calm, brother. Collecting debt is fine, but if you start a brawl, we have to intervene. This was a warning. Though unarmed, the dozen militia members present were an intimidating force. Needing the village party secretary's cooperation, I relented but glared at the old woman, asking, "So she can insult my sister without consequence?" Dongzi pulled me aside, advising me not to stoop to an old woman's level. He hinted that once the militia left, I could settle personal scores without witnesses. It was a tacit nod that they would ignore future private retaliation. I accepted the gesture. Stop. I agree. Tell them to stop, the old man shouted. Old Man Wu had tried to stop Su Sheng and Su Daong, but was physically overpowered. He knew Su Sheng's fearsome reputation and realized resistance was futile. Seeing the village party secretary standing by, Old Man Wu realized he had no leverage. Even if he reported it to the public security, he still owed the 500 yuan unless he could prove I acted alone. No one would believe a brother would pay 500 yuan for a job quota without a formal debt agreement. Even Old Man Wu found the reality hard to believe, despite it being true. Reporting the steel mill for selling job quotas would backfire, potentially ruining his son's job and inviting retaliation from the mill's management. A formal report would turn all existing introduction letters into useless paper, angering powerful people. He couldn't risk the wrath of those with connections. He was just a rural farmer. He couldn't afford to expose the industry secret of selling quotas. He knew better than to challenge the system. He had to swallow his pride. I held all the cards, and the debt was legally framed. Stop, I commanded, then asked the old man if he was truly agreeing to the terms. My goal was my sister's independence. I couldn't force a divorce due to her daughter, Yaya, so I sought to remove her from the Wu household's control. With my current influence, I wouldn't let my sister suffer. I promise. I wouldn't dare lie in front of the village party secretary. Don't play games, or I'll take the house next, I threatened. I gathered everyone inside and demanded they negotiate the elderly couple's pension terms now that my brother-in-law was joining the steel mill. They drafted pension terms, knowing the Wu family would try to exploit them. The Wu family wanted to keep Su Li at home to siphon her husband's wages. I blocked every attempt at manipulation, forcing the Wu family to concede. Agreed. Once Wu Jinxing starts work, he sends 6 yuan monthly for pension, adjusted for inflation. I added clauses to prevent the Wu family from exploiting the poverty line loophole. With both sons paying 6 yuan, the parents would have 12 yuan monthly, a significant sum. In the village, earning 2 yuan a month was standard. 12 yuan was a fortune. I didn't haggle over the exact amount, knowing prices would remain stable for years. I tied the pension to grain prices to ensure the money was for sustenance, not luxury. This ensured the parents were fed without the Wu family living a life of excess on the son's labor. The Wu family pushed for 6 yuan because the second son's wife would be doing the chores, which they claimed was unfair. I ignored the second son's specific contribution, focusing only on my brother-in-law. It's settled. Sign and press your fingerprints. Any objections? The entire Wu family signed and pressed their prints to prevent future backtracking. 3 copies were made, one for the brigade, one for Wu Jinxing, and one for the Wu family. Tying the pension to grain prices was a strategic move, as grain prices rarely fluctuated. It was a trap the Wu family couldn't see. They couldn't argue against just having enough to eat, without appearing like greedy capitalists. In this era, demanding more than basic sustenance would be branded as bourgeois and criticized. With the contract signed, I didn't push further and helped move the furniture back. With the militia's help, the house was restored to order in 2 trips. My actions weren't aimed at reconciliation or playing nice. I simply wanted to avoid being overly aggressive and burning bridges. Being too heavy-handed would paint me as a villain in Wu family village. While I didn't care about my own reputation, I didn't want Wu Jinxing to be ostracized by his own kin. The village party secretary helped because I was polite and generous, but also to discipline old woman Wu's family, who had ignored his previous warnings. The secretary was furious that the family had sabotaged their eldest son's job opportunity, forcing an outsider to intervene and undermining his own authority in the village. However, he also felt slighted by my aggressive behavior. If I didn't respect his presence, he wouldn't be inclined to help them in the future. Sister, brother-in-law, come back to Sanshuiwan Village with me. Pack everything you can take. I'll personally take you to the city in a few days. You won't be coming back here often. I made it clear, the bridge was burned. Old woman Wu's compromise was forced, and staying would only lead to further conflict and misery for the couple, especially with the second brother and his wife, whose jealousy and resentment would only fester now that their schemes had failed. Wu Jinxing understood this. Leaving was necessary to let tensions cool, though he hoped to maintain a facade of civility since they still relied on his remittances. Staying would only lead to petty squabbles over household items, and the village party secretary wouldn't intervene in such domestic disputes. All right, I'll pack, Wu Jinxing said, casting a final, reluctant look at the courtyard before heading inside. He knew he was leaving for good. Future visits would be purely transactional, gifts and money in exchange for superficial peace, as the family bond had long since withered. Su Li, I want to leave some of our grain for my mother. We can't carry it all anyway. Despite his resentment toward his father and his mother's lack of support, Wu Jinxing, nearing 30, had long suspected the truth about his parentage. He suspected he was the child of his mother's first marriage, born prematurely. He wasn't abandoned, just unwanted by his stepfather, and he couldn't be as cold-hearted as I. His mother had protected him in his early childhood before her attitude shifted as the second brother grew older. He understood her struggle, choosing between her husband's favor and her firstborn. Eventually, she had chosen to appease her husband to survive. Fine, whatever you say. Su Li didn't argue, though she knew her mother-in-law had become accustomed to oppressing her husband. The old woman's compromise stemmed from her own uncertainty about Jinxing's paternity. As she aged, she relied entirely on her husband and her younger son, abandoning her eldest to keep the peace. She had long since stopped trying to explain or defend him, choosing instead to turn a blind eye to her husband's cruelty. I watched as Wu Jinxing delivered half a bag of cornmeal to his father's room and knelt in a formal, 3-kowtow farewell. Seeing Jinxing's red eyes, I briefly questioned if I had been too harsh, but quickly dismissed the thought. I realized that while Jinxing might be willing to suffer, I had no right to drag Su Li into it. Little Yu, I'm sorry. I gave some of the grain you brought to my family. I'll pay you back later. The cornmeal was a gift from me, and though only half a bag remained, it was enough to sustain the family for a month. In this era, mixing grain with wild vegetables was standard. Eating pure cornmeal would be considered wasteful. I waved it off, signaling it didn't matter. I understood Genshing's internal struggle. If a bit of grain could ease his pain, it was a small price to pay. While I would have been more ruthless, I didn't judge Genshing for his kindness. Gratitude was a virtue, even if it seemed like weakness after decades of abuse. I, Su Sheng, and Su Daong helped pack. We took sentimental items like photos and Yaya's wooden horse, leaving the heavy furniture behind. The furniture was cheap and easily replaceable in the city. I wanted to leave the bedding and bowls, but Suli insisted on taking everything. They loaded 3 bicycles with bags and boards. It made riding impossible, but they could push them the distance. The bikes were packed to the brim, including a vanity table. Su Sheng took the wardrobe, I took the vanity, and Su Daong the rest. Why take this old wardrobe? It's junk. We should just buy a new one. Suli smacked me on the back, making me wince. I didn't dare retaliate. Suli had raised me, and she was the one person I wouldn't fight back against. Su Sheng had been a troublemaker, but Suli had been the one to look after me. You spendthrift. A wardrobe is worth 5 or 6 yuan, and a new one is over 10. Why waste money? I smiled sheepishly, acknowledging her thriftiness. Little Yu, let me push, Wu Jinxing offered. He grabbed the bike, nearly tipping it over due to the weight of the vanity. The board extension made the bike incredibly unstable. Su Sheng struggled with the heavy wardrobe, but they pressed on for the long journey ahead. Fortunately, they flagged down a passing ox cart heading toward their town. In this era, people were happy to give rides to fellow travelers if they were heading the same way. The society was incredibly honest. Even something as simple as marking a pile of cow dung with a circle would prevent others from stealing it. Because cow dung was valuable fertilizer, this level of communal trust was common, making it easy to secure a ride. They loaded the wardrobe, vanity, grain, and pots onto the cart, and Suli climbed aboard. Relieved of the weight, the men walked alongside the cart towards Sanshuiwan. I gave Wu Jinxing half a pack of cigarettes to offer the driver, who was delighted by the high-quality, filtered brand. Jinxing insisted the driver take the rest, feeling it was only right to compensate him for the ride. The villager was honest, refusing to accept cigarettes for a ride, fearing gossip about taking advantage of others. In this era of emulating lay foam, accepting favors was often viewed as selfish, so the villager was understandably cautious. To bypass this, I insisted the villager drive them all the way home, framing it as a specific service rather than a casual favor. With the task now a dedicated trip, the villager finally accepted half a pack of cigarettes after I and Wu Genshing's persuasion. Suli watched in surprise as I skillfully manipulated the situation, making it seem as if the villager was the one asking to be paid. Regardless, the goal was met. The brigade's cart was used, and I only lost half a pack of cigarettes and a little time. Arriving at my home, I directed them to move the furniture into my spare room. Suli realized the old courtyard couldn't accommodate them, and staying at her brother's place was the only practical solution. Huang Sui rushed out to greet them, and I quickly explained the situation. Understanding the circumstances, Huang Sui graciously agreed and helped move the items, putting the villager at ease. The room was soon packed with the wardrobe and vanity, making it cramped but functional for the family. I asked Huang Sui to keep Suli company while I saw the villager off. I and Su Sheng walked the villager to the village entrance, ensuring he was treated with proper respect. Though I had leveraged the man's kindness, I insisted on seeing him off properly, acknowledging the man's good nature. Su Sheng bid farewell, promising to gather at the old courtyard later that evening. Su Sheng and Su Daong left, with me reminding them to bring the rest of the family for dinner. Su Daong acknowledged the invitation. I returned home, while Su Li and Wu Jinxing headed to the old courtyard to see their mother. I then turned my attention to explaining everything to Huang Sui. By evening, I arrived at the old courtyard with game meat, joined by the third uncle's family and Su Daong. The entire family, including Su father, Su mother, and the siblings, were present. I and Huang Sui worked in the kitchen with the others, preparing the game meat for the feast. Lu Yuji was overjoyed, declaring they would steam buns to celebrate her daughter's newfound freedom. The family had long known of the Wu family's mistreatment, but had been powerless to help due to their own poverty. Knowing her daughter and son-in-law would now work in the city, Lu Yuji felt a great weight lift. The third aunt joined in, and the women busied themselves preparing the dough. The table was laden with game meat, pheasant, rabbit, deer, and goat, alongside fresh vegetables and eggs. I brought out Wulianya, pouring drinks for everyone to mark the occasion. I toasted my sister and brother-in-law, wishing them a prosperous and happy future. Such verbal expressions of well wishes were rare in the village, making my gesture stand out. My modern approach set a new tone for the gathering. Everyone smiled and followed Su Yu in offering blessings, especially the younger ones, like Su Jin and Tong Tong. Even little sister Su Jing piped up with a few nice words, drawing a round of laughter. Little Yaya sat in her mother's lap, sensing the joy despite not fully understanding the events. I toasted Wu Jiansheng, apologizing for my bluntness earlier and taking full responsibility for the fallout. Wu Jiansheng, moved by my support, drank deeply, admitting he wouldn't have known what to do without me. Overwhelmed by the realization of how the Wu family had treated him, Wu Jiansheng drank silently. When Suli tried to stop him, I intervened, allowing my brother-in-law to vent his frustrations. I knew that letting Wu Jiansheng get drunk was a necessary release for his pent-up emotions. The third uncle and aunt offered words of comfort, welcoming him into the family. I lit a cigarette, observing the scene. I understood that Wu Jiansheng needed time to recover from years of manipulation and adjust to his new life. After the meal, the family saw the guests off, with me and Huang Sui helping the couple back to the house. The family of three settled into the spare room at my home. I told them to rest, promising they could eat at the old courtyard the next morning. Suli thanked me, and they parted ways for the night. After settling her husband and daughter, Suli reflected on the day's events. Wu Jiansheng passed out from the alcohol, while I returned to my room to sleep with my wife. I whispered explanations of the day's events to Huang Sui while we were intimate. The room soon filled with the sounds of their affection. The next morning, I woke up, tucked Huang Sui in, and began my day. Everyone rose early, with Suli preparing Yaya for the day ahead. I instructed Wu Jiansheng to help with farm work, arranging for the labor to be credited to my own account. It was a way for them to contribute rather than just freeloading. Wu Jiansheng, grateful for my help, readily agreed. Suli stayed behind to manage the household chores and cooking. After eating at the old courtyard, Suli insisted that Wu Jiansheng accompany her to the fields. I, indifferent to work points, initially disagreed but eventually relented to Su Li's persistence. Once I finished my tasks and briefed the village party secretary, Huzi arrived, well-fed and eager. "What's the rush this early in the morning?" I asked. "I'm heading into the forest to hunt game," Huzi replied. "The girl I met in Sanshuiwan Village is coming to my place tomorrow to meet my family. I need to host her and her father properly." I chuckled inwardly. Huzi was too shy to name his fiancée, referring to her only as that someone. "So you rushed over here just for that? Can't you hunt on your own?" I teased. "You know my skills, it's all luck. I need you to lead the way," Huzi pleaded. Seeing Huzi's pathetic expression, I pushed him away and said, "Wait, I'm getting my gun." I informed Huang Sui before heading out. Meanwhile, Huang Sui and her sister-in-law prepared to join their mother-in-law in the fields, while Suli stayed behind to handle the laundry. Huang Sui had already gathered the clothes. Suli collected them, including those from the old courtyard and Su Sheng's household, to wash them all together. As I and Huzi entered the forest, we discussed the customs of the small meeting and big meeting. The latter, where the woman visits the man's home, was crucial for Huzi. These meetings were essentially about the man proving his worth and intent, reversing the dynamic of a woman simply choosing a man. The first meeting was a casual assessment of character and appearance. The second meeting, held at the man's home, was more formal. While usually led by a matchmaker, the father's presence was acceptable. This stage focused on the man's financial stability, his house, land, and assets. It was a comprehensive evaluation of the family's situation. The woman's family would assess if the mother-in-law was difficult or if the bride would suffer. If the girl accepted the engagement money, it was a yes. If she left early with an excuse, it was a polite rejection. Once this hurdle was cleared, The matchmaker would be summoned to set the wedding date. For Huzi, this was the final step toward ending his bachelorhood. I and Su Sheng had bypassed these formalities. I had saved old man Huang, and Su Sheng's situation was unique, making us exceptions to the era's rigid social norms. Huzi, however, had to follow the process step by step. Huzi was restless, pacing like a tiger in heat, while I followed at a steady, calm pace. "Brother you, has the gerfalcon spotted anything yet?" Huzi asked. I shook my head. Don't rely solely on them. Predators like leopards can hide in trees, evading the bird's sight. Stay alert, I warned. The forest is full of surprises. Split up, I directed. Search the grass. The birds can't see through the canopy. Huzi agreed. The dense forest made aerial scouting difficult. Only large, exposed targets like moose or wolves were easily spotted. Anything else could easily hide. Right, I'll take the left, Huzi said. I nodded. Heisey the dog was running wild, clearly enjoying the rare outing. It was natural for the dog to be excited, as it usually stayed home to guard the house. Heisey, stop running and come here, I called. The dog obeyed, and I patted its head, signaling it to start tracking properly. I activated my six senses, my nose flooded with the scents of the forest. I quickly locked onto several targets. Heisey, to the right, I commanded. As I led the way, Heisey caught the scent and began tracking. Huzi followed my lead. Found something? Huzi asked. Yes, follow me, I replied. With Heisey leading, they pursued the target. Suddenly, a yelp of terror echoed from the dog. It was the sound of a dog fleeing from an insurmountable threat. Click-clack. I and Huzi loaded our weapons and rushed forward. I didn't recognize the scent, but it was similar to a black bear. Whatever it was large enough to terrify Heisey. Be careful, I warned. If it's too much, climb a tree. I took the lead, desperate to protect Heisey, a dog I had invested heavily in. I couldn't let the dog die because of my own decision to hunt in this direction. I moved with incredible speed. Huzi, trailing behind, heard a sharp whistle as I moved through the air. A single arrow flew, striking the target in the mouth just as it lunged at Heisey. Thud. The massive beast collapsed, kicking up dust. Huzi arrived, breathless, and gasped, "A brown bear?" The scent had been similar to a black bear, but it was indeed a brown bear. My archery was precise. The arrow had pierced through the bear's mouth and out the back of its skull. Incredible. That was 40 meters away, right? Is this bow that powerful? Huzi asked, stunned. Huzi was amazed by the sheer force of the shot. I overexerted myself, I explained. The Tusher bow nearly snapped. It was true. I had pushed the bow to its limit in the heat of the moment. Heisey returned to me, whimpering, and I comforted the dog. It's a female brown bear, about 400 pounds, Huzi estimated. Huzi was skilled at estimating weight and gender, usually accurate within 50 pounds. Watch the perimeter while I extract the bear bile, I said. I recalled the black bear bile still sitting in my space, forgotten after the last sale at Paimanlu. I decided to process this one as well. I took out my knife to gut the bear while Huzi kept watch. What kind of bile is it? Huzi asked. I inspected the organ. It's dark and murky with sediment, an iron bile. A pity. I tied it off and tucked it away. I gutted the bear, discarding the organs and hanging the rest in a tree. Strange, brown bears are omnivores. Why would it chase Heisey so relentlessly? Brown bears rarely hunt other animals, preferring berries, nuts, and roots unless provoked. Heisey looks like a wolf, and bears don't usually hunt wolves. They typically stick to small prey like pheasants. Maybe Heisey accidentally provoked it, and the bear just wouldn't let it go? Huzi's guess was plausible, though unlikely. Heisey isn't foolish enough to provoke a bear unless there was a specific reason. Heisey, show us where you saw the bear. Let's go take a look. I could track the scent myself, but I needed Heisey to act as cover. About 20 meters away, they found a shallow pit near a large tree where the bear had been digging. Why would a bear dig here? I approached, crouched down, and picked up a plant leaf, sniffing it carefully. I know why it was digging. Huzi leaned in, curious. Why? Look at this. I handed him a tattered leaf, but Huzi couldn't identify it. It's wild ginseng, you idiot. I used a stick to clear the soil around the roots. Wait, don't we need to tie a red string around it? The elders say it prevents the ginseng from running away. Don't be superstitious. There's no root left to tie, Just stop. Huzi insisted on tying a string anyway, just in case. I let him, and Huzi tied the red string to the base of the plant. Does that even work? Better safe than sorry. I shook my head at the superstition, though I knew ginseng hunters took these rituals seriously. They spent a long time carefully excavating the ginseng, terrified of damaging the delicate roots. Lacking proper tools, they worked painstakingly until it was free. Done. Let's get out of here. On the way back, they caught a few pheasants and rabbits, which I gave to Huzi for his father-in-law. Back at the mountain foot, I sat down, exhausted, and lit a cigarette. Take the game home, then borrow a donkey cart from the village chief. We're going to the city. Huzi asked, are you going to sell it? We don't know the price. Should we ask Li Yukai to appraise it? I agreed. I knew the bear's value, but the ginseng was a mystery. I'll hide the bear. You get the cart. I'll head to Li Yotsai's. Huzi nodded and left. I pretended to hide the bear in the forest, actually stashing it in my space. I arrived at Li Yotsai's house. Uncle Yukai, are you home? Li Yukai was drying herbs. Finished the medical books already? I sat down at the stone table. I need you to appraise something for me. Li Yotsai's eyes lit up. Let me see. I pulled the wild ginseng from my jacket and placed it on the table. Wild ginseng? Wait, let me get my scale. Li Yukai returned with a delicate copper scale. He weighed the root carefully. 3 qian. Aside from minor damage, it's in good condition. It looks to be about 60 years old. A rare find, though your harvesting technique is a bit rough. I thought to myself that it was lucky the bear hadn't destroyed it entirely. Uncle, what's it worth? I'm heading to the city to sell it. Li Yukai knew he couldn't afford it, but he understood its medicinal value for life-saving purposes. So you came here just for a price check? I chuckled, confirming my intentions. Give me a ballpark figure so I'm not cheated. Li Yukai sipped his tea, acting like a sage. I was impatient, needing to reach the city by noon. Don't rush me, kid. I'm thinking. Li Yukai admitted he hadn't dealt with a 60-year-old specimen before. Think of it this way. A 300-year-old root might be worth a fortune, but only if there's a buyer. I looked confused. It depends on market demand. If someone needs it to save a life, they'll pay anything. It could be worth anywhere from a few thousand to tens of thousands. I nodded, realizing Li Yotsai's clientele couldn't afford such a premium item. Patients who could afford this would be in major hospitals, not seeing a village barefoot doctor. Li Yukai only dealt in younger, cheaper roots. Still, his estimate provided a useful baseline. I left, retrieved the bear from my space, and loaded it onto the donkey cart Huzi had brought. To the city, Huzi whipped the donkey, and they sped off. What did he say? Huzi was anxious about the potential profit. He wouldn't give a fixed price, but he explained that value is driven by scarcity and demand. It's not just the root, it's the desperation of the buyer. Unless it's a century-old specimen, the price is entirely market-dependent. I recalled that in the 90s, a 22-gram century-old ginseng was worth $20,000, now worth $550,000. Prices vary wildly. I'd heard of a 1-pound ginseng king, valued at $2 million in the 20th century. Wild ginseng value depends on age, weight, and medicinal quality. All are essential. My specimen is 60 years old and weighs 15 grams, 3 qian, a standard, palm-sized piece. I am unsure of the exact market price, as ginseng valuation is notoriously inconsistent, but I know it won't be cheap. The market is deep. High-quality roots fetch fortunes, while inferior ones are merely cheap alcohol-soaking fodder. In the 12th century, ginseng was practically worthless, selling for 5 yuan, hardly enough to expect real medicinal value. Age and weight are critical. I urged Huzi to hurry to the city to avoid going hungry. I relaxed against the brown bear carcass on the cart. Arriving at Paimanlu, I wondered if manager Fan would offer the same price as he did for the black bear. If Fan profited last time, he'd pay well. If he lost money, he would surely haggle or refuse. Skipping the theatrics, they went straight to weighing the brown bear. Brother Su, for 100 jin. The usual rate, 8 yuan per jin, Fan said. I nodded. Shortly after, Fan returned with 3,200 yuan. My total earnings reached 15,000 yuan. After a hearty meal of meat buns and tofu pudding, they searched for the city's largest pharmacy. They spent the afternoon inquiring about the best traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, shop. After multiple confirmations, they settled on one. Siwei Chaodang, good name. I told Huzi to watch the cart and entered the shop. The pharmacy was bustling and significantly larger than the one in the county. I grabbed a clerk, Xiao Detzi, and asked for the owner. The clerk dismissed me. We don't buy wild ginseng. Get out and stop blocking the way. I, accustomed to the era's rough social norms, didn't appreciate the clerk's dismissive attitude. Hey, watch your mouth. How am I blocking you? Irritated by the clerk's beggar treatment, I shoved him. The commotion drew a crowd, and an elderly man emerged. Xiao Detzi, why are you arguing again? Sir, this man is peddling wild ginseng and won't leave. I prepared to retaliate, but the old master interrupted. The old master stepped in before I could strike. My apologies, young man. My apprentice is wary because scammers often bring low-quality ginseng to extort us, and the police struggle to stop them. Director Wong from the police station had to stake out the shop to catch them. My apprentice mistook you for one of them. The old master appeared healthy and sharp-eyed, clearly a veteran in his field. Realizing the misunderstanding, I chose to remain professional to ensure a smooth deal. I understand. I am a hunter and herb collector, and I came here because Siwei Chaodang is known for its fairness. The clerk had judged me by my rustic appearance, assuming I was a street hustler. Ginseng valuation is complex. Non-experts cannot accurately price the quality or age. This ambiguity allows scammers to pass off young roots as expensive, aged ones. If a scammer succeeds, they can argue the value is subjective, making it impossible for victims to seek police recourse. Explaining the nuances of ginseng to a layman is like explaining rocket science. Without years of study, the expert authority is easily challenged. Scammers exploit this, often using the shop as a target for extortion rather than actual trade. Even if caught, these syndicates often use temporary workers as scapegoats to keep their operations running. The industry is murky, involving both corrupt doctors and herb traffickers. Well said, young man. Follow me. The old master led me to a quiet pavilion in the back, a sign of the pharmacy's century-old history. I laid out my wild ginseng, a root slightly thicker than a thumb, on the stone table. The old master inspected it. 3 Qian, about 65 years old. Average quality, though your processing technique is unrefined. Fortunately, the root structure remains intact, preserving its potency. The old master instantly recognized that I was not a scammer. My demeanor was different. What is it worth? 5,000. That's my final offer. Feel free to check elsewhere. I had hoped for more, but considering historical data, where a 22G century-old root sold for 20,000 yuan in the 80s, 5,000 for a 15G, 65-year-old root was fair. Like young pork lacking nutritional value, ginseng's worth is tied strictly to its age. Without sufficient age, it's only good for soaking in alcohol. I agreed, trusting the old master's expertise and seeing no further use for the root. The old master's accurate age assessment confirmed his credibility. Agreed. I have 2 more items for your appraisal. I pulled 2 bear gallbladders, 1 golden bear gallbladder and 1 iron, from my space. The old master was visibly excited. Bear gallbladders were far rarer and more sought after than ginseng. He snatched the golden bear gallbladder immediately. Excellent. This is from a black bear, right? Your eyes are sharp, old master. I'll give you 5,000 for this one. I knew I could get more, but I lacked the professional processing skills to maximize its value. Just as a cooked dish costs more than raw ingredients, processed gallbladders hold higher value. I'm being fair. I'll make about 500 after processing and selling it as medicine. The old master admitted his profit margin, but I accepted that I couldn't replicate the necessary processing steps myself. I lacked experience in pricing bear bile and didn't want to test my luck. I knew the pharmacy owner, Li Yukai, earned his living through professional expertise, so I deferred to his judgment. I'll follow your lead, I said. The old man then turned his attention to the second bile, frowning. This second piece came from a brown bear. As an iron bile, its medicinal value was significantly lower than the first. Cough. Little brother, I can't offer as much for this iron bile. 2,000 is the absolute limit. The old man explained the quality difference between the 2 biles to ensure I understood the price gap. Although not a TCM practitioner, I had studied basic medical theory and understood the distinction. I see you have some knowledge of TCM, the old man remarked, impressed. I had let slip a few technical terms, revealing I had read medical texts. The old man realized I had at least a foundational connection to the field. I'm embarrassed, I replied modestly. I've only skimmed a few books. I'm just a beginner. They exchanged a few polite pleasantries, but the old man, seeing I lacked deep expertise, lost interest in further technical discussion. Wait here, I'll go get the money. Shortly after, I received 12,000 yuan and left the pharmacy. With my previous 15,800 yuan, I now held 27,800 yuan. I felt elated as I reunited with Huzi, who was waiting by the donkey cart. Been waiting long? Is it hot? It was late April, the sun was warm, and Huzi had been waiting for nearly an hour. I'm fine. Did you sell the wild ginseng? I nodded. Since I had hunted the bear and gathered the ginseng myself, there was no need to split the earnings. We boarded the cart and headed home. Wait, brother you, Huzi asked. If tomorrow goes well, should I give her a gift? Huzi recalled me gifting Huang Sui a watch and wondered if he should do the same to make a good impression. Forget the watch, I advised. You don't have a ticket, you can't buy one, and it's too early. She could still change her mind. Plus, you don't want her father to start demanding expensive items. I had only gifted my watch after registering our marriage, despite having the means to buy it earlier. I explained that gifts before marriage were simping, whereas wedding gifts held commemorative value. In this era, a few hundred yuan was a massive fortune. A typical farmer might only earn 3 yuan a month through work points. Saving 100 yuan would take years of perfect health and extreme frugality. Spending 5 years' worth of wages on a woman before even registering the marriage was foolish. Such generosity was excessive and unnecessary. We earned money by risking our lives in the mountains. We were still just farmers, not wealthy elites. You're right, Huzi conceded. What kind of thoughtful gift should I get then? I realized Huzi was prone to being taken advantage of due to his impulsive generosity. I understood now why Huzi had been scammed in his previous life. He was too eager and gave too much, too soon. Even with my own wife, I had waited until we were officially registered before giving her a watch. Without intervention, Huzi would have overspent, setting an unsustainable precedent for a rural marriage. While the 3 rounds in 1 sound was a popular standard, few families actually had the means to fulfill it. In the village, even owning a bicycle was a status symbol. Most households had nothing more advanced than a flashlight. Listen to me, I said. Buy a floral dress and a pair of cloth shoes. It's classy, thoughtful, and appropriate. I pushed this idea to prevent Huzi from secretly buying a watch. Huzi had saved about 150 yuan, enough to potentially buy a watch on the black market if he were desperate enough. Huzi nodded, trusting my judgment over his own impulses. Left to his own devices, Huzi likely would have bought a radio or something equally extravagant. All right, I'll do as you say, brother you. We turned the cart toward the market, and Huzi went in to shop. He returned with a gift box tied with a decorative bow. I didn't ask to see it. I had given my advice, and the rest was up to Huzi. As a best friend, I knew not to overstep regarding Huzi's personal affairs. On the way back, Huzi mentioned he'd spent 40 to 50 yuan on high-quality imported fabric for the dress and shoes. It was expensive, but I didn't complain. It was far better than a watch. Back at Sanshuiwan, I patted Huzi's shoulder. Dress sharp tomorrow. Good luck. I headed home, and Huzi left, feeling encouraged. You're back? What do you want for dinner? It was already dinner time by the time I returned. We had rushed to the market, but the return trip was leisurely, spent chatting while the donkey found its own way. The donkey knew the route to Sanshuiwan perfectly. We arrived home slowly, enjoying the quiet ride. Whatever you want to make is fine, I replied. Huang Sui prepared a meal of stir-fried wild duck eggs with tune, loofah, and venison with green peppers. Are you feeling okay? You seem a bit listless, she asked. I shook my head. I felt a strange sense of aimlessness, having suddenly acquired nearly 30,000 yuan while others struggled just to become 10,000 yuan households. I'm fine. Let's eat. Huang Sui didn't understand my internal conflict, or she might have teased me for my luxury problems. After dinner, we spent the night together. The next day was Huzi's blind date. I stayed away, as it was a private family matter. Only village women and children would typically gather to observe the new bride. It was inappropriate for men to gawk, so I stayed home, leaving the social duties to the local women. The blind date process is strict. Huzi's mother must invite guests. Showing up uninvited, even just to watch, risks offending the woman's side and causing the man's family to lose face. Curious women arrive before lunch. If the woman stays to eat, it means the match is successful. If she leaves without eating, it's a rejection. Only the tactless arrive the moment the girl enters. Those with social awareness wait until 11:30 a.m. to peek. If Huzi's mother asks for help, guests stay. If not, they just take a quick look and leave. Children are exempt from these rules. If the match fails, they've only lost a bit of candy, which no one minds. Everyone understands that matchmaking is hit or miss. Failing to click is normal and not a source of shame. I'll go check at noon. If Huzi's mother asks me to stay, you'll have to handle your own lunch, I told Huang Sui. Helpers don't stay for the meal, but the task lasts until afternoon. It's a favor, and the host usually sends a small gift afterward as a token of appreciation. I knew they likely wouldn't be asked to help. As distant relatives, the core family members, uncles and their wives, were the priority. Showing up was just a formality to show support for Huzi's family. If the match fails, the host closes the front gate, signaling to potential helpers that there's no need to enter. Keeping the gate open is a sign of confidence in the bride's appearance. Closing it suggests the family is hiding something. Since I didn't want to go into the mountains, I stayed home and stewed some venison with salt, a rare treat for the era. Unexpectedly, Huang Sui returned before noon. Back already? I thought you were going to the old courtyard. I and Huzi are within the 5 degrees of mourning, sharing the same great-great-grandfather. As kin, we are expected to help, even if our labor isn't strictly needed. It's about maintaining appearances. Huang Sui had planned to meet Li Xiuqin at the old courtyard before heading over together. It was only 11 a.m. She gulped down water and said, "Things have changed." I asked if Huzi's match failed. A failed match usually ends in minutes, so a closed gate would have made sense. "No, it's not about Huzi," she replied. "It's about sister-in-law." I assumed it concerned my sister, Su Li, who was at the old courtyard. "It's sister-in-law. She just got back from the hospital," she said. I jumped up, worried she was ill. In my past life, Shenggu'er was a lonely bachelor. I had worked hard to secure him a good wife in this life, and feared fate was playing a cruel trick. "It's good news," she quickly added. "She's pregnant." I let out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. Huang Sui didn't misinterpret my concern. She knew I was just deeply invested in my brother's happiness. She understood my character and knew I only cared about the family's well-being. I was relieved because I feared that if I couldn't change my brother's fate, my rebirth would have been meaningless. Knowing it was a child, I finally felt at ease. Li Xiuqin had been vomiting all morning, so Shenggu'er took her to the hospital. The news of the pregnancy left the family stunned and overjoyed. Though the local doctor could have diagnosed it, Shenggu'er, having married at 30, was incredibly protective and insisted on the county hospital. She was over a month along, and the surprise caught them completely off guard. Now, Shenggu'er wouldn't let her lift a finger, terrified of any accident. I and Huang Sui arrived at the old courtyard with game meat to help nourish her. I brought 2 pheasants, caught specifically for this occasion with the help of my gerfalcon. With the gerfalcon, catching pheasants and rabbits is easy. We just fly until we find them. It took less than 2 hours to secure the game. Shenggu'er eagerly took the meat, his focus entirely on his wife's health. "Hey, take it easy," I joked as he snatched the game. The atmosphere was light and joyful as we teased him. "Congratulations, sister-in-law." We offered our well wishes while Shenggu'er handled the meat. "Thank you both. Your brother was just worrying about how to get supplements," she said. I laughed it off. I was happy to help. "Everyone, please, you're making me nervous," she said. "I'm not even 2 months along, and I feel fine." Indeed, Shenggu'er was hovering over her constantly. Even our mother, Lu Yuji, forbade her from working in the fields. It was an overreaction by modern standards, but in this era, food was scarce and work was mandatory for survival. The family had to balance her health against the need for work points and food. Everyone was struggling to eat enough, making the extra care for her even more significant. "Let's go inside," I said. "It's getting hot, and my brother will worry if you overheat." I ushered them inside, leaving Shenggu'er in the kitchen. He had completely changed, hovering over the cooking process to ensure everything was perfect. Sorry I didn't accompany you to Huzi's place today, I told Huang Sui. She didn't mind. The pregnancy news was far more important. We enjoyed a meal together, with Sheng Guer doting on Li Xiuqin the entire time. Just as we finished, someone arrived at the door. Heisey barked. The dog still frequented the old courtyard, his original home, looking for scraps. I'll go check, I said. I left the table, allowing the women to clear the dishes while I went to see who had arrived. I opened my door to find Qinsheng standing there. Qinsheng? Why are you here? What, not welcome? I smiled, guessing the reason. Of course, come in, it's hot out. Qinsheng glanced at the old courtyard. I'll skip the house, you have guests. Let's talk in your new place. I understood. Qinsheng felt awkward around elders. Sure, wait a moment. I explained to my family, then led Qinsheng to the new house, followed by Heisey. I served tea and offered Qinsheng a cigarette. So what's the urgent business? No emergency, just good news. I secured that position for your sister. She needs to go to the sub-district office for an interview and to fill out paperwork. I realized Qinsheng had clearly put in significant effort over the past week. Thanks. I owe you a drink. I believed in mutual respect. I wouldn't take the favor for granted. Forget the drink. Li Qiuran's friends helped too, or it wouldn't have been this fast. Qinsheng noted that simple trades often fail, but this connection was different. Li Qiuran's friends had direct ties to the sub-district office. After Qinsheng left, Huang Sui, Su Li, and Wu Jinxing returned. I shared the news. Wu Jinxing was stunned. He thought my previous mention was just talk. Wait, you really found me a job? Of course. You can't just idle around while my brother-in-law works. Su Li was moved to tears, knowing how hard it was to secure such a position. She marveled at how much I had changed their lives recently. Her own life had been completely transformed thanks to me. Though they still owed me money, they finally saw a future where they worked for their own benefit. Su Li began to cry, and Huang Sui and Wu Jinxing comforted her. Don't worry, Sui, we will pay you back. We won't take advantage of you. Su Li noticed Huang Sui's surprise and realized I had kept this secret from my wife. She wanted to ensure her brother's marriage remained happy. Exactly, we will repay every cent, Wu Jinxing added. Huang Sui felt embarrassed, fearing she seemed petty. She didn't mind the help, just the secrecy. She realized I helped because I cared, not because I was being coerced. Sister, don't worry. He's my husband, and helping family is the right thing to do. Su Li felt relieved that the couple wouldn't fight over her. Go get some rest. Tomorrow, take her for the required health check. The job required a clean bill of health. I gave Wu Jinxing 20 yuan and saw them out. Back inside, Huang Sui teased me, and I jokingly acted like I was in trouble. I'm not mad about the money. I'm mad that you kept it from me. We're a couple. You should consult me. I realized she just wanted transparency. You're right. I should have told you. I surrendered immediately to avoid her wrath. I knew her too well. If she wanted to make my life difficult, she could. To avoid a cycle of petty retaliation, I chose to concede. Exactly. Why keep secrets? Are you guarding against me? My mistake, you're right. I knew better than to argue with a woman who felt slighted. After my repeated apologies, Huang Sui lost interest in the argument and went to sleep. The next day, I went to the mountains with Huzi. How did the date go? It went well, but her family is making demands. What kind of demands? Her father wants a bicycle as part of the bridal gift for her younger brother. I thought this was unreasonable. Did you agree? She said she couldn't help it. It was her father's rule. She even tried to break it off, saying it wasn't my fault. She's a good woman being treated like a commodity. If I don't agree, she might be married off to some old man. I have to save her. I sighed, realizing Huzi was being played. A white lotus indeed. Good luck, you'll need it. Huzi insisted on helping his partner escape her family's demands. His family, fearing he would cause a rift, reluctantly agreed to fund the bridal gift, knowing Huzi earned enough to cover it. I stayed out of it. It wasn't my place, and I didn't want to judge the woman prematurely. She might genuinely be the white lotus Huzi believed her to be. Fate is unpredictable, and some things are beyond one's control. Still, I offered a subtle warning. It seemed too coincidental that Huzi had stumbled upon such a perfect woman in this day and age. I didn't want to be too harsh, but I urged Huzi to be cautious and avoid being scammed, speaking plainly so there would be no misunderstanding. Only their close bond allowed for such frankness. Otherwise, Huzi would have surely taken offense at anyone questioning his beloved. Huzi took the advice to heart. He trusted me implicitly, a habit formed from years of childhood friendship. This trust meant Huzi would consider my words carefully, knowing I would never deceive him. Huzi decided to be more cautious regarding money, though he remained willing to continue the relationship for now. Stop overthinking, I said. Once you set the wedding date, you'll see if she pulls any more stunts. I just wanted to provide a reality check. If Huzi lost a bicycle, it would be a cheap lesson in life. Opposing it too strongly would only alienate Huzi, which wasn't worth the trouble. Relationships are a matter of personal choice. One must respect boundaries, even among friends. People have different preferences. Some men even prefer widows with children. If there is a soul connection, identity matters little. I left it at that, knowing I shouldn't overstep my bounds as a friend. Forget it. Huzi found something. Let's go. They followed the dog into the mountains. Huzi usually just tagged along, but their delay gave him time to track a scent I had previously noted. Huzi put his worries aside, deciding to wait and see how the wedding arrangements unfolded. The situation made me realize that my own success, the new house and my wealth, was drawing attention to Huzi, making him a target. I realized I needed to keep a lower profile to avoid future trouble. Whoosh, an arrow struck a rabbit, and Huzi rushed to retrieve it. I cleaned the rabbit and fed it to Huzi, tossing the carcass into Huzi's basket. Huzi was disappointed it wasn't larger game. I shook my head. Huzi had become spoiled by their recent successes, forgetting that a rabbit was still a prized catch for most villagers. Enough talk, let's keep looking. They found only small game like pheasants and rabbits, with no sign of larger animals. What's going on? Where's the big game? Huzi asked. I explained that it was breeding season, so animals were likely concentrated in specific, hidden areas. Huzi understood. The animals had simply shifted their territories. They gathered during mating season, though their exact locations remain a mystery. Let's keep moving forward. Even with my senses, I couldn't track them everywhere. UG, a goat. Huzi pointed, ready to fire his gun. I stopped him. Look at its belly first. Huzi crept closer to inspect the animal. It's pregnant. Huzi asked upon returning. Yes, let it go, I said. Hunters follow a code. Don't exhaust the resources. Killing pregnant animals leads to a decline in the population. Huzi sighed in frustration. I smiled. If you want to make a living in these mountains, you must respect its rules, or you'll end up buried here yourself. I used to be skeptical, but I knew that those who ignored these rules for short-term gain eventually paid the price. If everyone ignored the rules, the entire industry would collapse. Smart people who cheat are merely borrowing from their own future. Since my rebirth, I preferred to be cautious. It was better to be safe than sorry. Screech, a cry from the gerfalcons signaled a discovery. Let's go. They sprinted through the dense forest. I leaped over the tall grass with ease, clearing a path for Huzi to follow. What is it? Huzi crouched beside me, as I was already observing the scene. A wolf pack hunting. The gerfalcon only spotted them because of the commotion. Huzi peered through the grass, finally spotting the wolves. What do? We intercept, I replied. We can't exactly ask the wolves to stop for the sake of the rules. Huzi chuckled. The wolves certainly wouldn't listen. They split up to flank the pack, which was hunting a mother wild boar and her piglets. The mother boar refused to abandon her young, keeping them trapped in the circle. I circled around and climbed a tree. Neither the wolves nor the boar noticed me, as they were entirely focused on the hunt. The wolves closed in, waiting for the alpha to signal the final strike. The 300-pound mother boar grunted, trapped and desperate. Wild boars are fierce, and even a wolf pack risks heavy casualties attacking one. The mother's protective instinct was clear. She would rather die than leave her young behind. A wild boar is a force of nature, hitting with the impact of a van. It could easily hold its own against a tiger, let alone a wolf. While a pack of 20 wolves could take down a sow, they would hesitate if it were a Pao Lan Zi, a boar so tough that, aside from its rear, there's nowhere to bite. Killing such a beast is exponentially harder, usually requiring a large pack rather than a medium-sized one. I signaled an OK to Huzi, who was positioned behind a tree on the opposite side. They exchanged signals to confirm their locations and avoid friendly fire. I held back. Attacking now would scatter the boars. I preferred to wait for the chaos of the fight to strike. Setting aside my rifle, I readied my bow, waiting for the signal. The alpha wolf howled, launching the attack. The wolves swarmed, causing the boar herd to panic. Had the boars stood their ground, they could have repelled the pack, but their instinct to flee caused the sow to separate from the others. The slower piglets were quickly surrounded by the wolves. As the wolves closed in, the sow fought back, tossing one wolf aside with her tusks. When the wolves grabbed the piglets, the sow rushed to save them, leaving her vulnerable to flanking attacks. It was a grueling war of attrition. The boars would eventually bleed out if this continued. The wolves were smart enough to avoid a direct head-on collision with the sow. They focused on hit-and-run tactics, inflicting wounds to break the sow's will to survive. Knowing their bite couldn't snap a sow's neck and fearing a counterkill, they aimed to exhaust her until she gave up. Like lions with buffalo, wolves wait for the prey to realize escape is impossible and stop resisting, effectively becoming live food. The sow's lack of reaction to the bite signaled she had reached that point of despair. The wolves were simply waiting for her to accept her fate as their meal. Asterisk whoosh. 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 Asterisk I struck from the trees, firing lethal arrows at the wolves attacking the piglets. The arrows were silent, and the wolves didn't realize the threat until their comrades began dropping. One arrow pierced a wolf and struck the sow behind it, a double kill. Huzi fired his rifle, aiming for a piglet's head but hitting its leg instead. I followed with a barrage of arrows. My shots were precise, intentionally targeting the piglet's hind legs to immobilize them. I dropped from the tree, shouting, "Huzi, the rope." I kicked a fleeing piglet back into place. The surviving wolves, seeing the casualties, fled. The pack retreated the moment Huzi fired. 5 wolves lay dead, pinned to the ground by my arrows. Catch! Huzi tossed the rope. He realized I had intentionally crippled the piglets to capture them alive. I began binding the immobilized piglets while Huzi stood guard to prevent escape. As I moved to the next piglet, Huzi asked, "Brother, you're planning to raise these?" Huzi realized my marksmanship was too good to be an accident. "Exactly. Check the one you hit. Hopefully, it's still alive." Huzi checked. The bullet had caused a through-and-through wound, but the piglet was alive and unable to walk. 6 piglets total. Is the sow still breathing? The sow was still standing, though an arrow had pierced her neck. She was too injured to pose a threat. I pinned her down and carefully removed the arrow. Huzi was shocked. "You're trying to save the sow? You can't domesticate an adult wild boar." I ignored him, binding the sow's legs and pulling medical supplies from my hidden stash to stitch her wounds. Huzi was puzzled by the medical kit, but I brushed it off as standard gear for a hunter. I successfully stitched the sow, leaving her survival to fate. "Since when did you become so soft-hearted, brother you?" I continued stitching the piglet's wounds without answering. "They're still nursing, and the sow's protective nature moved me," I finally replied. In truth, I planned to crossbreed them with domestic pigs for future profit. While the village had no official breeding quota, raising my own stock for personal consumption was perfectly legal. Sometimes, villages kept extra pigs as off-plan supplies to ensure they met government quotas despite potential losses. These extra pigs were often sold or kept for breeding to replenish stock. Such practices were common knowledge, and livestock occasionally appeared on the black market. I knew that while raising wild boars wasn't profitable now, a crossbreed could be a goldmine once private trade opened up. It was a spontaneous idea, but I decided to bring them back and see. "Can you handle the 5 piglets?" I hoisted the heavy sow while Huzi struggled with the piglets. "I'm keeping these for now, so I won't split the catch with you. I'll give you 50 yuan as payment for your help." I insisted on compensating Huzi for his time and effort. "Forget it. The gerfalcon did the work. I just helped a little," Huzi declined. I didn't push. "Wait for me. I need to deal with these wolves." I bundled the 5 wolves with the 300-pound sow and hoisted them with ease. Back at the village, I approached the old party secretary. "You want to borrow the village pigsty for wild boars?" Su Daqiang was hesitant. The village focused on farming, and the pigsty was reserved for emergency government quotas. He doubted the flimsy village pens could hold a violent, full-grown wild boar. Su Daqiang worried that if the breeding project failed, it would be a loss for the village, though he trusted my responsibility. Su Daqiang eventually agreed. reasoning that the current mandate was farming, not breeding, so the risk was low. Furthermore, my wealth meant I could easily replace any losses, removing the burden of risk from the village. Su Daqiang led me and Huzi to the pig pen to secure the wild boar. The sow has a bloody arrow wound, Su Daqiang noted. Will it survive? We'll know tomorrow, I replied. If it dies, I'll treat you to pork. I wasn't joking. If the sow died, I wouldn't bother trying to raise the piglets myself. Stop talking nonsense, Su Daqiang scolded. If it escapes and hurts someone, I'm holding you responsible. He then sent me to gather pig feed. Huzi and I grabbed sickles and cut grass to feed the boar. That's enough for today, I said. Let's head back home. I gave Huzi 3 wolves as compensation for his help, as Huzi had returned empty-handed from the hunt. It was only fair, given Huzi had acted as a laborer throughout the trip. Huzi accepted, planning to stew them for a meal. Huzi, a responsible older brother, always tried to bring home food for his younger siblings after his trips. Though wolf meat wasn't a delicacy, in these times, any meat was a blessing. I waved goodbye and began butchering the remaining 2 wolves. The next day, I visited the village party secretary. You want to sell the wild boar to the village? The secretary frowned, warning me against speculation and profiteering. I wouldn't dare, I insisted, waiting for the secretary to listen. I explained that the village lacked a breeding mandate because labor was focused on farming, with only women and children gathering feed. The village was too small to manage large-scale breeding, making it inefficient. Other villages have extra meat during holidays, I noted. We only get meat if we hunt, which is left to chance. The villagers envied others, but kept their thoughts to themselves. I proposed donating the wild boar to the collective so the village could breed them for communal feasts. The secretary was pleased. A donation wasn't speculation, and it would boost his own prestige. Yet, he remained suspicious of my motives, knowing I was as cunning and shameless as my aunt. What's your real goal? The secretary asked. I admitted, it's not entirely unconditional. The secretary wasn't surprised. I was too sharp to do anything for free. Speak up, the secretary said. I'll consider it if it's within reason. The secretary wanted the prestige of hosting communal feasts, provided it didn't violate policy. He wouldn't risk his position for minor gains. I just want a larger share when we slaughter, and a formal commendation for my contribution, I requested. The secretary was stunned. I had donated hundreds of pounds of game before without asking for anything. I'm not just giving meat, I explained. I'm giving you a sustainable source of livestock. Once we have a surplus, we can sell the excess to the Grain Bureau's purchasing agents. The secretary paused. Selling to agents was a viable idea. While agents usually ignored small villages, a collective breeding program would change that. If the collective handled the sales, it was legal and could generate significant funds. Capturing wild piglets was a rare opportunity. If successful, the village could pay fines for grain shortages and keep their own crops, preventing hunger. If it failed, they simply ate the meat, which was perfectly acceptable. As I argued, who could claim that raising captured boars before slaughtering them was illegal? The secretary realized this was a major political achievement, regardless of the outcome. I'm happy you're donating, the secretary said, but I must criticize your demand for special treatment. The brigade will discuss this, but you are not to be involved in the actual breeding. I'll try to get you a commendation, but don't count on it. Since you donated the piglets, giving your family a larger share is acceptable. I've wanted to do this for a long time. I internally scoffed at the secretary's hypocrisy, but smiled and agreed. Selling surplus meat to agents allowed the village to pay grain fines, ensuring they kept enough food to survive the winter. Even if quotas were reduced, the extra cash meant they could buy food on the black market, a collective effort no one would report. In a crisis, the village would prioritize survival over strict adherence to regulations. Preventing starvation was the ultimate political achievement for a village leader. Go on now. The secretary dismissed me. I'll handle the rest. I wasn't acting out of pure altruism. I simply wanted to avoid being a target while ensuring the village's survival. My donation of the wild boars was a calculated move to secure my standing in the village following Huzi's matchmaking incident. By contributing to the collective, I gained the commune's endorsement, making it politically risky for anyone to target me. Opposing me would now mean opposing the village's interests. The boars were worth roughly 340 yuan, a small price for me to pay as a strategic investment to test the waters. That afternoon, the old party secretary held a meeting. The villagers were thrilled by the news of the donation. Lu Yuji was showered with praise. Even the villagers who weren't fond of me saw the benefit of potential meat, effectively silencing dissent. The village head organized a team to raise the pigs, promising extra meat as an incentive. My family was included in the distribution. Since the piglets were wild and donated to the collective, there was no risk of being accused of speculation and profiteering. The meeting concluded with the village in high spirits. The women and children began their assigned tasks, while the old village chief headed to the commune to report the initiative. The commune agreed to help market the pigs, with proceeds going to the collective in exchange for leniency on public grain quotas. This arrangement allowed the commune to provide subsidies for village development, such as repairing farm tools, using the pig revenue. By involving the commune, the village avoided the label of speculation, framing the profit as a collective reward. The commune leader praised the village's contribution, offering to allocate a portion of the pig revenue back to the village as a reward. This reward model bypassed strict regulations, framing the profit sharing as a legitimate incentive for the village's initiative. Su Daqiang understood the nuance. Calling it profit sharing would be dangerous, but rewarding contributions was politically safe. The commune was happy to reward the village, as it was a small price to pay for the collective's success. This provided the village with a legal, transparent income stream that no one could criticize. Understood, we'll follow your lead, Su Daqiang agreed. The deal was sealed, and Su Daqiang took the opportunity to highlight my role. He spoke at length about my character, from my past bravery in saving the educated youth to my current selfless donation. Su Daqiang carefully omitted my private conditions, keeping the focus on my public-spirited image. Impressed, the commune agreed to issue an official certificate of merit to me. They stopped short of a public ceremony, preferring to wait for tangible results before overpraising. Nonetheless, the certificate served as a formal recognition of my contribution. Su Daqiang was thrilled to receive the signed and stamped certificate, viewing it as an honor for both me and the entire village. Back in the village, the old party secretary held another meeting to present the certificate to my family. Su father accepted it on his son's behalf. Su father was deeply moved, while the eldest uncle's family seethed with jealousy. With the matter settled, I returned to the mountains with Huzi, though the haul was smaller, mostly wild goats and game. Exhausted from the hunt, I skipped the meeting to rest. Even a smaller haul of hundreds of pounds of goat meat was an incredible feat by any standard. I sent some game to my parents and a goat to my sister-in-law for her health. I kept the rest, hosting a dinner for my sister, brother-in-law, Yaya, and Huang Sui. I avoided the village meetings, letting my father handle the politics. "Third brother, what are you cooking?" Su Jing called out, entering the house. Seeing the pot of mutton, she immediately began to salivate. Su Li pulled her over, gave her a stool, and served her a bowl of meat. When asked why she wasn't eating at home, Su Jing explained that their mother had salted the goat meat to save for the sister-in-law's recovery. In the village, salting was the standard way to preserve meat for weeks. I realized my mother was so focused on the pregnancy that she was neglecting her own daughter. I offered to send a bowl to my parents, but Su Li insisted on doing it herself. I had cooked plenty, so there was enough to share. Living next door, the smell of the meat easily drifted over. Lao Si was likely too proud to come over, but Su Jing had no such reservations. Since I started hunting, the family had never lacked meat, and the younger siblings were no longer as desperate. "Eat slowly, no one is taking it from you. Come back tomorrow if you want more," I said, petting her hair. I was genuinely fond of my younger sister. Su Jing nodded vigorously, her mouth full. Huang Sui smiled, noting how healthy Su Jing looked compared to the other village children. Su Li returned and reported that their father was proud of my contribution and the certificate, which he planned to frame. I found the obsession with the certificate amusing but understood its importance to the older generation. Such honors were highly valued as symbols of social standing and contribution. While the certificate was only from the commune, it carried enough weight to satisfy Su father's pride. I focused on feeding my family, ensuring everyone was well fed. After dinner, the women cleaned up while I and Wu Jinsheng drank tea, and the children went out to play. Despite the darkness, the village children were active, though some of the hungrier ones stayed inside. "I'll take you to start your job tomorrow, then I'll bring my sister and Yaya," I told Wu Jianxing. "We're family, so don't be so formal," I added, warning him to be cautious about requests for money from his relatives back home to avoid being exploited. Wu Jianxing realized my comment about being duped referred to his own family's low opinion of him, not the hospital. He felt pathetic, though he had long seen their true colors. "Don't worry, I have a plan. Drink your tea and go rest. I'll take you there tomorrow." With May approaching, they needed to report early. Those with mentors would enter the workshops to familiarize themselves with the environment. After Wu left, I and Huang Sui prepared for bed. I was exhausted, but Huang Sui insisted on playing poker. "They say women are like wolves at 30 and tigers at 40, but you aren't even 30 yet. What's gotten into you?" I was willing but confused. "Stop talking nonsense and pay your public grain tax," she said, pulling me into her arms. Since her sister-in-law became pregnant, Huang Sui had grown anxious. I could only work hard in the bedroom, hoping for results. I finally understood why she had been so compliant with my requests lately. After we finished, I patted her back. "Don't pressure yourself. Children are a blessing, but our bond is what matters." Huang Sui giggled at my wisdom, and we fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. The next day, Su Jing came over for a free meal. I didn't mind. I had no temper when it came to my younger sister. After breakfast, I and Huzi loaded the donkey cart with the goat, pheasants, rabbits, and the jackal we had hunted. With the cart full, I, Huzi, Wu Jianxing, and Sheng Guter set off for the county. "Brother, are we going to the steel mill?" "Yes, but the branch factory, not the main one." They picked up the Huang brothers along the way. The new branch factory was near their town, and they arrived shortly. "So close. That's convenient. Prices are lower here. Don't get your hopes up," I replied, heading to the guardhouse. A crowd of new recruits waited outside. I spoke to the guard, who made a call. Soon, Zhang Yuegua walked out to meet them. "Brother, you're finally here." They hugged, and Zhang looked at the cart. "You brought game? You've done me a huge favor." Zhang patted my shoulder, clearly relieved to see the supplies. Even if the goat wasn't enough for a feast, it would make a hearty soup for thousands of workers. "Are these the workers you're bringing in?" I introduced them one by one. The elders received respectful greetings, and the younger ones called Zhang Brother Yuegua. Good. We're all brothers here. I'll take you to register and head to the personnel department." Zhang insisted on helping them through the entire process to ensure their entry was smooth and secure. With Zhang's help, they bypassed the lines, filled out forms, entered the factory, weighed the game, and collected their payment from finance. After settling the accounts, I led the group to the factory director's office. "Brother, aren't we going to personnel? Why the director's office?" Shengur asked. The others were equally curious, but too shy to ask. "Shoo, just be polite," I whispered. Zheng opened the door and introduced them to the director. The men introduced themselves nervously. "Don't be nervous. All work is noble. We are all contributing to the country," the director said kindly. After a brief exchange, the director had his secretary escort them to personnel. I, using my heightened senses, had overheard the earlier private conversation in the office. Having the director's secretary personally escort them carried much more weight than Zhang doing it alone. I knew Zhang had likely offered gifts to the director to secure this favor. I understood that such favors were never free. There was always a hidden agenda. Zhang needed supplies to establish his footing at the new branch, and I was his key provider. Even knowing the ulterior motives, I couldn't refuse the help. I accepted the debt of gratitude. If this made my family's life easier, I didn't mind being labeled a director's man. It wouldn't affect a low-level worker like me. "Thanks, Brother Zhang. How much did it cost?" "I'll cover it." Zhang waved it off. "Don't worry about it. Once they finish registration, I'll introduce them to their masters." I stayed, wanting to ensure everything was finalized. "Brother Zhang, since I'm here, why don't you show me around and explain how things work?" Zhang understood my caution and agreed to explain the factory structure. "We have iron smelters, steel workers, sinterers, coking workers, maintenance, electricians, and administrative/logistics staff. Newcomers start as temporary workers, doing the dirty, manual labor. Once familiar, They are assigned to a master to learn a trade. Most start in the iron smelting workshop, moving ore. It's grueling work, so you know how it is. It's low skill, low pay, and temporary, with no chance for promotion or grading. They're stuck doing the hardest work with no path to a permanent raise. The next assignment is crucial. It determines your future career and salary. Usually, you don't get a choice. You go where you're needed. A master's guidance is the only way to become a level 1 worker. I had a hard time securing spots for your friends. I had to convince the director to place them in specific workshops. I understood. Zheng had used his influence to get them into high-demand workshops where they could actually learn a trade and advance. I had to swallow my pride and use all my persuasion to get the director to agree to these placements. That's just the first step. The second is winning over the master in that workshop. Without their approval, you won't get anywhere. I knew that technical masters were notoriously stubborn. Even the director couldn't easily force them to take on an apprentice. Zheng Yuegwa secured a meeting with the workshop director to facilitate an apprenticeship, leveraging his connections to bypass standard hurdles. Through the director's mediation, the master agreed to meet the candidates before committing to take them on. Zheng Yuegwa went to great lengths, visiting the master's home with gifts to show his sincerity. He only exerted such effort because my future was at stake. In this era, procurement agents with resources hold immense sway. The master is Pei Guoqing, a level 7 expert in the steelmaking workshop, Zheng explained. We'll handle your brother's paperwork first. They headed to the personnel office, where Zheng and the factory director's secretary expedited the hiring process for my group. They treated the secretary with utmost respect, offering cigarettes and hospitality to ensure a positive impression. Now, we split up, Zheng directed. Sue, go to the cafeteria, book a private room with Wei Huai, and order a feast. I'll bring Master Pei. I smiled. I knew if I left it all to Zheng, I would owe a massive favor. Understood. I took Xinguer, Huzi, Huangshan, Huanghai, and old woman Wu to the cafeteria. I had originally met Zheng through Wei Huai, so securing the cafeteria's help was straightforward. Wei Huai readily agreed, and I ordered dishes featuring the game meat I had provided. Zheng soon returned with Master Pei, a burly man in his 50s wearing only a vest to combat the heat. Despite his age, Pei's muscular physique showed he had been a powerhouse in his youth. Everyone, meet Master Pei Guoqing from the steelmaking workshop. Zheng introduced each candidate to the master. When introducing me, Zheng highlighted my role as a hunter, noting that the factory's meat supply depended on me. He added that I had personally funded the entry spots for my brothers. Zheng spoke openly, as these facts were common knowledge among their inner circle. Pei was stunned, for spots cost 2,000 yuan. He was impressed that I would spend so much on my family. Pei bypassed the candidates and asked me directly, "Blood is thicker than water, but money is money. Aren't you afraid they won't pay you back?" He asked this bluntly in front of the others, showing no concern for social niceties. Pei didn't care about the candidates' feelings. He had no shortage of aspiring apprentices. He asked because his own position had been gifted to him by his older brother, a memory that still haunted him. He had always wondered about his brother's motivations, and seeing this display of brotherly devotion prompted his curiosity. "Master Pei, these are my brother, my brothers-in-law, and my sister's husband," I replied. "Helping them is helping my own family. I don't expect repayment. I just want them to thrive as I do. I'm merely giving them a push. They must walk their own paths." "Well said." Pei laughed. "You're a good lad. Want to join the steel mill? I can get you a spot. As a level 7 worker, just one step below the elite level 8 and engineers, Pei held significant influence. Level 7 workers are the backbone of major national projects, representing the pinnacle of technical execution. In this era, such a master's recommendation carried immense weight. "Thank you, but I have other ambitions. I could have entered the factory any time, but I had no interest in such a life." "A pity," Pei sighed. "Men who help their kin without seeking reward are rare these days." The others felt awkward, being the recipients of such selfless aid. "Master, contributing to the country isn't limited to factory work," I countered. "Providing food for everyone is my contribution." Pei wasn't fooled. He knew I simply earned more outside the factory. He respected my choice nonetheless. Wei Huai personally served the dishes, a gesture that shocked Pei, given Wei's high status as the factory's premier chef. Wei's culinary skill was so vital that even the logistics director dared not cross him. Master Wei, you shouldn't have, Pei said, rising in surprise. Pei was a master technician, but Wei was the man who kept the factory's leadership satisfied. Nonsense, Pei. You're the guest of honor today, Wei replied before taking his leave. The group toasted Pei with tea, as he was not a heavy drinker. The elaborate display of respect and the sheer weight of the connections involved made it impossible for Pei to refuse the apprenticeship. With the factory director, the workshop director, and the procurement officer all involved, Pei had no room to say no. To refuse now would be seen as arrogance, and he had been treated with too much honor to decline. Enough formalities. Let's eat, Pei said, breaking the tension. Zheng Yuegwa stepped in to smooth things over, keeping the conversation flowing. As a procurement agent, Zheng was a master of social dynamics and drinking culture. He worked to ensure the atmosphere remained relaxed. Actually, Zheng joked, my cousin's sister-in-law is dating your son, Master Pei. We're all practically family. We're all friends and kin here. I'm used internally at the loose definition of kin, noting that in the village, such relationships were usually formal, arranged matches. Rural life was more conservative, whereas city dwellers were more open about courtship. In the village, matchmakers were the standard, unlike the more casual dating scene in the city. This isn't a traditional arranged marriage, but a semi-modern courtship where parents respect their children's opinions rather than dictating the match. I realized Zheng Yuegwa had thoroughly investigated Pei Guoqing to uncover such a distant connection, proving his dedication. Zheng Yuegwa went above and beyond, delivering 1,000 yuan's worth of effort for a mere 100 yuan favor. After the meal, the group dispersed. Pei Guoqing promised to inform the workshop director to ensure the new recruits were placed under his supervision. Pei Guoqing handled the internal logistics. I pulled Su Sheng, Wu Jiansheng, and Huang Shan aside, handing each 50 yuan. They were confused by the sudden generosity. I explained they needed funds to treat their future mentors to meals, as building rapport is essential for new workers. I then handed them 2 packs of Haidman cigarettes each. I advised them to distribute the cigarettes upon entering the factory. While hard work matters, good social connections are vital. This wasn't just for show, it was standard practice. Giving high-quality cigarettes reflected well on their mentor, Pei Guoqing. The cigarettes were meant as a tribute to Pei Guoqing, who would then distribute them to co-workers to introduce his new apprentices. By having Pei distribute the cigarettes, he could frame his apprentices as generous and capable, boosting his own reputation as a mentor. Getting the order wrong would only embarrass Pei Guoqing. Even before entering the workshop, they needed to carry cigarettes to build relationships with fellow workers. After saying goodbye to Zheng Yuegwa and Wei Huaid, I and Huzi departed, leaving the rest to the recruits. I had done everything possible. If they failed now, it was entirely on them. I handed Huzi my share of the game meat sales. Huzi accepted the money, hitched the donkey cart, and left the steel mill. My remaining tasks: secure housing for Wu Jiansheng, enroll Yaya in school, and get Suli a job at the sub-district office. Housing would take a week. Wu Jiansheng couldn't qualify until he was officially a steel mill employee. Although usually reserved for permanent employees, Chunsheng's connections allowed them to bypass the strict waiting period for Wu Jiansheng. Yaya's enrollment was simple, requiring only Wu Gensheng's employment proof and a household registration transfer. I had already secured the necessary paperwork from the old party secretary of Wujia Village. With the sub-district office job secured for my sister, I left the remaining administrative tasks to Wu Jiansheng. I spent the entire day helping my sister settle into her new role. At the office gate, Suli urged me to be careful and stop spending so much money. She worried about my excessive generosity, despite my good intentions. I had brought candy, seeds, and 5 gene of goat meat for every staff member, including the director. I insisted the meat was wild game from my hunting trips, meant as a gift for everyone to enjoy. I left the gifts behind despite their initial hesitation. The director decided each person would take 1 gene, with the remainder donated to impoverished households and the elderly. This decision was praised by all, effectively avoiding any accusations of corruption. The staff treated Su Li with great warmth, influenced by my generous gifts. I waved goodbye and left. I had given my sister my bicycle, as she needed to commute between the village and town until her housing was ready. When Wu Jiansheng and Su Sheng arrived to pick up Su Li, they were pleased to see she had a bike. The three left together, while the Huang brothers walked home, lamenting the lack of a bicycle. Huang Hai and his brother needed to return to Huangjia Village, unlike Wu Jiansheng, who required housing. Temporary housing was limited, and most workers lived at home, where space was already at a premium. With large families, privacy was scarce, making the struggle for living space intense. If temporary housing were easily available, everyone would apply. Wu Jiansheng only qualified because of my connection to Chen Sheng, who held sway with the factory leadership. Chen Sheng had put in significant effort, using his own social capital to secure the housing. Chen Sheng only did this to repay his debt to me, as it technically bent the rules. While not strictly illegal, it was a backdoor favor that Chen Sheng had promised to fulfill. It was a minor infraction, comparable to pulling strings for a student who narrowly missed a university cutoff. Chen Sheng felt the risk was low and the favor was worth clearing his debt. He preferred to settle the debt now to avoid future, potentially more difficult, requests. Huang Hai complained about the commute, but his brother reminded him of their father's strictness. Their father insisted on paying back me before spending money on luxuries like a bicycle. They resigned themselves to walking, planning to wake up earlier to compensate. Their father remained anxious about the famine and prioritized clearing their debts above all else. The brothers continued their long walk home. Meanwhile, Su Li, Wu Jiansheng, and Su Sheng visited the old courtyard to report their first day to their parents. I and my wife later joined them for a family meal. After dinner, I asked my father if he could source bricks from the commune factory for a new building project. Su's father, who worked at the brick factory, could secure a discount, and I intended to make use of it. I successfully sent my family members off to work, pleasing Su's father, who values familial harmony above all else, even when faced with his eldest son's past mistreatment. Su's father noted that my new plot only had a north room and suggested building a proper courtyard with red bricks, given my financial means. While adobe houses remain the norm, red brick construction is becoming an option, albeit a rare one. I agreed, noting that as a brick factory worker, my father could secure a discount, making red bricks cost-effective. Su's father conceded that while adobe is free, the labor and the cost of feeding workers during the long drying process make it less efficient. Red bricks save time and labor, allowing for immediate foundation work, which is far more convenient. Su's father agreed to apply for the employee discount for his son the next day. He was happy to use his annual quota for me, as he was satisfied with my recent conduct. I visited Uncle Zheng in Zhongjia Village to oversee the construction project, just as I had done previously. Uncle Zheng agreed to handle the procurement and calculation of materials, opting to stay out of the brick acquisition since I had already secured them. I handed over 1,000 yuan as an initial deposit for the remaining construction materials. The plan included building the east, west, and south rooms, along with the main gate. Unlike others who leave the south side open for gardens, I intended to build a full courtyard. The 1,000 yuan was merely a down payment, as the total cost for the 3 rooms and gate would far exceed that amount. Uncle Zheng trusted my character, as the latter had a reputation for settling debts promptly. With the measurements and material lists finalized, I left the logistics to Uncle Zheng. I preferred a hands-off approach, outsourcing the work and promising payment upon successful inspection. Uncle Zheng and his crew, familiar with my process, began laying the foundation while Uncle Zheng went to source materials. Uncle Zheng's established connections allowed him to procure materials on credit or with partial deposits, a privilege not extended to strangers. Because of his reputation, Uncle Zheng didn't need to pay in full upfront, unlike an unknown buyer. Huang Sui stayed at home to supervise, primarily ensuring the workers had water, as my hands-off management style required little else. The bustling construction site at the edge of the village quickly drew attention. News spread throughout the village, sparking envy and gossip, while Su Yu's eldest uncle's family reacted with visible hostility. Su Yuqing, the eldest uncle's 15-year-old son, complained about my success, but his sister, Su Shi, warned him against provoking me. Su Shi, the only daughter of the eldest uncle, stood by as her brother vented his frustration. Su Yuqing held a long-standing grudge against my family for past conflicts. Su Yuqing questioned why his sister was defending an outsider. She dismissed her family's obsession with me as unworthy of their time. She argued that I was merely a lucky hunter, and their brother's imprisonment was his own fault for his incompetence. She criticized her brother for using underhanded tactics over a woman, calling his actions foolish. Su Fuguwei, their father, scolded Su Shi for her disrespectful comments about her brother. Su Yuqing glared at her in frustration. Su Shi doubled down, reiterating that her brother's failure was due to his own stupidity. Su Fuguwei was livid, but Su Shi remained indifferent. She told her father not to envy me, dismissing me as a mere hunter showing off his wealth. She doubted I could ever achieve anything significant in the countryside. Dismissing her father's anger, Su Shi announced she was returning to school in the city. 17-year-old Su, she was a high school student in the city and considered herself superior to the rural folk. Her exposure to city life made her look down on rural affairs, viewing them as trivial struggles over money. She believed money solved 90% of life's problems and viewed the family feud as pathetic and short-sighted. Su Shi had the potential for higher education, supported by her family's wealth and her own grades. However, she lacked focus and entered the workforce early, despite her disdain for her rural roots. Her deep-seated desire to escape her rural identity stemmed from a sense of shame, which she desperately tried to shed. Her obsession with others' opinions and her materialistic outlook left her feeling inwardly insecure. Meanwhile, my casual walk was interrupted by an unexpected confrontation. I encountered Lai Tu-san, who had recently been released from labor reform. Lai Tu-san had previously conspired with Su Bin to force Su Jiqing into marriage, a plot I had exposed. Su Bin was imprisoned, and Lai Tu-san had been sentenced to labor reform for his role as an accomplice. My calm smile was misinterpreted by Lai Tu-san as a provocation. Lai Tu-san stared at me with intense hatred. Lai Tu-san demanded compensation for the property he had to sell to secure his early release. His henchmen accused me of being the cause of their financial ruin. Lai Tu-san had been released early due to his cooperation and connections, having served only a few months. He had been quick to confess during the initial investigation, fearing the consequences. I retorted that Lai Tu-san's imprisonment was his own fault and warned him not to mistake my calm for weakness. Lai Tu-san vowed to settle scores with Su Bin later, but insisted that I, the whistleblower, must pay a price now. As Lai Tu-san spoke, his two henchmen stepped forward to surround me. Before the thugs could act, villagers from Sanshuiwan arrived to intervene. Over a dozen men arrived. While they were simple farmers, they were more than enough to handle a small-time crook like Lai Tu-san. I considered self-defense, but I knew the local public security would prioritize identifying the first aggressor. If Lai Tu-san struck first, I wouldn't hesitate to beat him. I was no longer the bullied boy of the past. However, the villagers had already surrounded Lai Tu-san, making a personal confrontation unnecessary. Su Yu, are you alright? Is this dog trying to bully you again? It was Su Dihai, a pillar of their production team who had also stood up to Lai Tu-san in the past. I'm fine, Uncle Dihai. Thanks for arriving in time. I decided to let the villagers handle the situation to ensure Lai Tu-san suffered. The villagers were close-knit, and seeing me, the son of their neighbors Lu Yuji and Su Sheng, being harassed, they felt compelled to act. Lai Tu-san, you have some nerve coming to our village to bully people. Drive him out, the crowd shouted at Su Dihai's lead. Since I wasn't injured, they couldn't demand compensation, so they focused on forcibly expelling the intruders. Lai Tu-san tried to flee, but the villagers had blocked all his escape routes. This isn't over. Lai Tu-san threatened, only for Su Dihai to kick him, sending him stumbling. In his prime at 40, Su Dihai easily dominated the 25-year-old Lai Tu-san. Encouraged by Su Dihai, the others joined in, forcing Lai Tu-san and his henchmen to flee in a panic. Look at yourself in a mirror before coming here to cause trouble, the villagers jeered. Su Dihai warned me, be careful. I heard he sold his ancestral home to secure his early release. Isn't selling houses prohibited? I asked. They use loopholes, leasing or mortgaging to village chief Sanshuiwan. Lai Tu-san wouldn't dare renege on him. It was essentially a scam. Sanshuiwan would gain decades of usage rights, and Lai Tu-san would never dare reclaim the property later. Even without full ownership, The residential land itself was a valuable asset for the future. Ma Sanyuan was ruthless, but since Lai Tu San was universally disliked, no one cared to defend him. It was a legal gray area. Since Ma Sanyuan wasn't an official, the authorities wouldn't intervene in these private deals. Lai Tu San's crimes were relatively minor, making it easy for the village to handle him through social pressure. I dismissed the threat, knowing Lai Tu San was too cowardly for anything beyond petty harassment. Returning home, I heard my parents arguing in the old courtyard. "Dad, Mom, what's going on?" Seeing my father home at midday and my mother's distressed expression, I sensed trouble. My parents avoided my gaze, clearly reluctant to speak. "Grandfather has had a cerebral hemorrhage," my mother finally revealed. I was stunned. In my past life, my grandfather had only suffered from high blood pressure. "Why are you fighting over his illness?" My parents rarely fought, making this sudden tension alarming. "Your father wants to empty our savings to save his father," my mother snapped. "Shouldn't the three brothers share the cost?" I asked. I felt no affection for my grandparents, but I wouldn't stop my father from fulfilling his filial duty. I remained neutral. If my father wanted to pay, that was his choice. "Your aunt is at the hospital, claiming your grandfather collapsed because of us, and she's demanding we pay the bulk of the costs." It was likely the family blamed me for my cousin Su Bin's imprisonment, using it as an excuse to extort us. I doubted the illness was truly my fault, but I knew the aunt would use any pretext to squeeze us. "So you came back for money? What about third uncle?" Third uncle usually avoided the brothers' conflicts, but he had supported me during Su Bin's arrest. "Your third uncle cursed us both for arguing instead of saving him, then left to find money elsewhere. Third uncle was likely off trying to borrow funds, leaving the others to bicker. The hospital needs 300 yuan. Your third uncle is broke, and your eldest uncle claims he has nothing left after paying for his children's schooling. I wanted to take the money first, but your mother is blocking me." I knew my mother was right. If they paid up front without an agreement, they would never see a cent back. My mother had about 300 yuan, mostly from my allowance. My father, desperate, didn't care whose money it was as long as he could save his father. "Mom is right, Dad. If you pay now, they'll just blame us for the illness and never pay you back." My father knew this, but his conscience wouldn't let him watch his father die. Third uncle was truly destitute, living only on work points. Third uncle would feel no guilt if the grandfather died, as he had no means to help. Eldest uncle, driven only by greed, likely didn't care about the grandfather's survival at all. Su's father was the tragic one. He had the money, but it wasn't his, and his sense of filial piety made him suffer the most. Unlike the cold-hearted eldest uncle, Su's father was trapped by his own morality. He felt deeply conflicted. While he wanted to contribute to his father's medical bills, his wife controlled their finances, leaving him powerless. Though I wasn't a master of intrigue, my mature perspective allowed me to clearly perceive my father's inner struggle and frustration. He had once been the family's sole breadwinner with a steady job at the brick factory, but his mother had systematically drained his earnings. His current poverty was a result of his own lack of backbone. Had he stood up to his mother, he could have easily afforded the medical costs. Instead, his money had been funneled to his eldest brother, whose son, Su Bin, squandered it on schemes involving Su Jiqing and Lai Tu San. Sui's lack of savings was a self-inflicted consequence of his past financial mismanagement. It was a bitter harvest of his own planting. "Mother, give father 100 yuan. We'll pay our share, and the rest is up to fate," I declared. Lu Yuji reluctantly produced the money from her purse. I insisted on this to protect my father from public scrutiny, ensuring no one could claim he was shirking his duty while I lived well. By paying his third, Sui fulfilled his obligation, even if the total amount remained short of the hospital's requirement. Splitting the cost equally among the three sons was fair. Sui shouldn't be expected to cover the entire burden just because his son was successful. Su's father sighed heavily but accepted the 10 yuan bills from his wife. Medical treatment for a cerebral hemorrhage at the time was limited to 4 drips and basic medication. Time was critical, so Su's father hurried to the hospital to pay and ensure his own father received care. He departed with a lonely, dejected air. "Son, were we too harsh?" Lu Yuji asked, feeling a pang of guilt. Influenced by traditional values, she feared being labeled unfilial or cruel if anything happened to her father-in-law. She worried about the village's potential judgment if they knew she had limited the payment. Don't worry, mother. We did our part. We were the first to pay our share. No one can fault us for that. I reassured her. I then handed her 200 yuan, claiming it was from hunting with Huzi, and told her to keep it hidden from my father. I knew my mother had sacrificed half her savings, and I wanted to ensure she felt secure. I felt no obligation to support my father, who had been absent and indifferent, but I felt a deep duty to my mother. I was more than willing to provide for her to ease her burden.